Tonight's coverage of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malois Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malois-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of Round 4 of Season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malois Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. As always, I'm Regan Clark, and you join us here on the second of our two visits to Italy on the Italian doubleheader, leaving Emilia-Romagna and heading north to the region of Lombardy, here on the outskirts of the town of Monza, at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Founded in 1922, it's mainland Europe's first ever dedicated racing course and the world's third after Brooklands in the UK in 1907 and Indianapolis in the US in 1909. Known as the Temple of Speed, this circuit consists of 11 turns and 3.6 miles of FIA Grade 1 in the modern day, and it's the home of the Italian Grand Prix. This circuit is all about speed, long open straights contrasted with tight chicanes and sharp corners. Monza will see the lowest aero setups emerge amongst the paddock this season. Last time we were here was in the trailing end of Season 3, Round 7 to be precise, which saw Melvin Milliston win with his time at BMW. Christian Lebay finished second and Cas van Velzen, on an ecstatic performance for Porsche, finished third to round out the podium. Looking at where we place ourselves on the calendar, of course, only 4 rounds in, just scraping towards the halfway mark. That'll be next Sunday over at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium for Round 5 of the championship. We still find ourselves here very firmly into the European chapter. Started back in Round 2, will end over toward Round 8. Looking at the regs heading into today's round, as we just see on board here with James Mason, you can see that we find ourselves in the first of our endurance format races of Season 4. Now, of course, last season was endurance racing we saw out here in Monza in Round 7. Now we see it for Round 4, 10 minutes of free practice, of which we're in at the moment, 20 minutes of qualifying and 90 minutes of racing. But unlike last season, one mandatory pit stop for fuel with no minimum fueling time. So very similar rules to what we've seen in the double stint 2.0 format we saw this season. It's going to make for very exciting racing to follow here in Monza, already trailing on a fantastic act from last weekend's race in Imola. Now, to introduce a new set of rules after Round 3, the drop point system returns after Season 3 into Season 4. Of course, it's set to nullify 2 of the worst results from the standings and is introduced from Round 3 onwards. It's a cumulative system that follows with the season, so it will continue to progress and scan for what is ideally the worst results of any one driver or team. We'll see that having massive ripple effect when we get onto the discussion of the standings in a moment's time. The idea is to give competitors their best chance against unpredictable odds such as disconnects, outages, technical failures, or sometimes also just a race to forget. It's investigated by the stewards team to ensure that the system isn't abused by deliberate DNF farming and is administered automatically. Seeing how that's affected the championships, we start off first with the teams championship. 5-Star Esports are now level pegging at the front row with Velocity Racing, 93 points between the pair of them at the front of the pack. Malois Racing in third, with Exclusive dropping to fourth with 48 points, and they're ahead of VEC Esports, who very quickly shoot up to the top 5. They're up and ahead of Holkianos by 9 points, with Nexus GT currently in 7th. Looking at the Rookies Championship, it's done little to affect the progress of Sam Angel. He continues to lead with Lexus, this time with 93 points after Round 3. Josh Welbelove up to 2nd with McLaren, and after a knockout entry to the championship, William Bajor 3rd place and joint 3rd with Zolt Beefgartner. Joint 5th behind them is Daniel Richards and Stefan Nikolai, joint 7th for Alexander Hivrich and Fran Sanchez. 9th place for Corey Aiken. And rounding out the top 10 is Matthias Gonalons. Nye Roberts in 11th place and Carl Martel in 12th. JM Quito a joint 13th with Joel Villager, between both Ferraris, 26 points to be spared. And rounding out that top 15 is Ben Hart with BMW. Anthony Cotti in 16th place ahead of Chris Sharp, with Thiago Moreira and Shahan Karim joint 18th. Doza Powers in 20th with Dan Junior Poulin in 21st, and Joaquin Quadro rounding out 22 cars of the Rookies Championship. Looking as to how that's affected things overall, we stay on board here with James Mason, who's very recently made a move into the top 5. Looking at it here, Melvin Milliston continues to lead the charge with 93 points. He's 33 points up the road from Christian Lebay, with a now joint 3rd place between George Todd and Cas van Velzen. 53 points between the pair. We see now that James Mason has shuffled up to 5th place, only 2 points off of what is a joint podium. Tyler Vermack drops to 6th place behind Mason with 48 points after the drop point system came into effect. Ben Cheeseman with 42 points is only 6 points away from Vermack, and he's ahead of Sam Angel in 8th place, Scott Milbank in 9th, and William Bajor rounds out the overall top 10 with 30 points after a knockout entry back in Imola. Third place overall. That is a fantastic round to cover off from back in Imola last weekend. In fact, looking back in through the previous results, we saw that round concluded with a hat-trick of victories for Melvin Milliston, win number 11 for the Super Swede, and with more trouble for his former rival of Season 3, Tyler Vermaak. A maiden rookie win and overall podium for William Bajor, with Christian Lebay equalising on his series best result of second place, continuing to push forward in the championship. Fastest lap from that last race was by Melvin Milliston, a 1:41.110. Now, looking in through free practice, there's only a few more minutes before the discussion of qualifying coming up. We have quite a few things to discuss, namely a list of brand new drivers to this round. So some names to keep a close eye on as the round progresses. Now, including on this list, we have Tobias Sievert, Archie Bowen, Ranko Lagovic, Ola Dolarup, Rover Rakotomanga, Taylor Wolford and Alex Albert returns to the grid as well. Looking at the balance of performance coming into round 4 of the championship, we find ourselves with quite the myriad here. Aston Martin still with 40 kilos reduced on the V12 Vantage. As we start to take a look around the field proper, we see quite a few of the BMWs out in active service right now before the start of qualifying today. We try and catch on board here with one of the Fords when we get onto that discussion. Looking further around, Bentley loses 13 kilos. So for Daniel Richards and Archie Bowen, both of which using the Bentley for this round of the championship, we'll be seeing great benefit today. The 2018 Continental loses 13 kilos. Lexus losing 11 kilos, with Porsche losing 6. Into the positives, Mercedes with negligible differences. So for Cas van Veltzen, one of the primary users of the Mercedes AMG, it's 2 kilos added onto his car. McLaren gaining 5 kilos, with Ferrari gaining 9, double figures for Ford and BMW 12 and 13 kilos. So those two find themselves on the short end of the stick. So you see here Stefan Nicolai with 5-Star Esports chasing the man on screen, the 607 of Kevin Quain with Malois Racing. Now, speaking of the Ford, of which we've been watching on board with here, we've actually seen very recent progress in a newly updated speed chart between turns 11 and 1. We were taking a note of all of the data for top end we were seeing out of multiple drivers, and we've seen most recently for Ford, they are now joint fastest, with Aston Martin's V12 Vantage at 175 miles an hour between Parabolica and the Variante Retafilo. Ferrari jump up to third place, or technically a second place, as it were, behind these two, but third place overall, and that's a joint third they share with BMW at 174 miles an hour, or 281 kilometers an hour. Lexus with 174 miles an hour, but 279 kilometers an hour, so a more approximate change of things between BMW and Lexus. Bentley joined the charts there with 172 miles an hour, 278 kilometers an hour, and they're level on that speed with McLaren. Aston Martin's V8 Vantage a single kilometre an hour behind. Now, we do have a few gaps in our data for the top-end speed, namely for Mercedes, for Porsche, and for, I believe, Lamborghini. What we can say, though, from what we've been able to observe firsthand out of Cas van Veltzen in the time leading up to today's free practice and qualifying for round 4 of the championship, we've seen that the Mercedes slots just in between BMW and Lexus in and around the 280 kilometre an hour mark, so still up at 174 by using the Imperial system. Looking around the field here, we can see Alan Alexander. We want to try and get a look with some of the new drivers just before the start of qualifying today. And we can see here, this is Rover Rakotomanga in the number 14 Porsche there, clad in very eerily reminiscent colours to that of the old John Player Special livery, making his way down through the Lesmos here. Looking also around the field, this is Taylor Wolford, the Australian, competing with the number 6 Porsche. We've seen a recent rise in attendance from the Porsche drivers in this championship. 2 brand new Porsches into round 4. You see here Wolford following behind the current rookies division leader, Sam Angel, in the 719 Lexus. You can see there making his way out of the Curva Grande down towards the Variante Della Rosa. But we saw plenty of action in our last running here at Monza back in Season 3, Round 7. See Alex Albert from the pit lane at the moment joins the Malois lineup, as we see a bit of a stutter there for quite a few drivers. We have had a few connection troubles over the course of today's runnings. Hopefully nothing too severe before we get on to the real bread and butter of this qualifying session to follow. As we see, we are now at the end of free practice, so coming up very quickly on the topic of qualifying. We can see in the pit lanes at the moment that 333 William Bajor, who took a podium and a rookie's win back in Imola last round. What a fantastic performance we saw out of him in the last runnings here at the Sunday League. You see Tyler Vermaak on his way currently out through the Variante Retafilo, just on the end of free practice here. He's looking very, very hopeful in his chances for qualifying. We'll touch on that a little later on. We can see, though, there's been quite a few connection troubles just in that pit lane. We've seen quite a few emergency yellow flags thrown out there. Down across the line, JM Keto, 17th fastest at the end of free practice. Currently, seemingly the fastest time out of free practice today. George Todd in the number 12 Ferrari, fastest with a 1:46.360. Van Nicolai, second fastest. Cas van Veltzen, third fastest. Next to the line, the number 6, Taylor Wolford. Crosses the line there, 21st fastest. Also see out on track at the moment. This is Alan Alexander, another new driver for today. Was originally signed up as a reserve, but we can see a much more wider presence being discussed today here for the Euro Titans team. What we were definitely confirmed was the attendance of the 316 Bentley. That was Archie Bowen set to make a return to the Sunday League, but now we also see his teammate, the 315 at Euro Titans, Alan Alexander, which we saw a little bit of him back in Bathurst last night at what was a very, very hectic round of the NLRL Console Endurance Series. One thing that definitely does strike me at this time, the 316, which we were expected the attendance of, now seemingly having vanished. In his stead then, the 315 of Alan Alexander. We'll see what he can do as Tyler Vermack went third fastest right at the very end of free practice. 20 minutes of qualifying to follow. You can see the grid is lively, and first out of the gates, the early bird of the Sunday League, James Mason in the 413 BMW. We can see further down the line, JM Keto making his way out, but let's get on board with the opening flurry of vehicles here passing through the exit, I should say, of the pit lane. Following in the stead of James Mason, there's Cas van Veltzen in the number 420 Mercedes. Of course, having discussed the speed from earlier on, 280 kilometers an hour expected between turns 11 and 1, so it puts him slap bang in the middle of things. Not too slow, but not too fast either. So having a look here in the qualifying predictions for round 4 of season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, it pitches Melvin Milliston at pole position, a 1:46.367 ahead of Stefan Nicolai in second place. Tyler Vermack predicted at third ahead of Christian Lebay in fourth. Alex Albert returning to the grid with Lexus is predicted at a top 5, a 1:47.547 for the American, and he's up and ahead of Ben Cheeseman in sixth place. Not too far between the pair there, looking in and around 2/10 and 19 thousandths in and around that range between 5th and 6th. Sam Angel predicted at 7th ahead of Ranko Lagovic in 8th place. He's up and ahead of Kevin Quain, with Daniel Junior Poulin rounding out the top 10 with a 1:48.467, a factor of 2.1 seconds between 1st and 10th place. Very, very close stuff to be discussed in the next couple of runs here at Monza. 18.5 minutes left to go as we follow here with James Mason and Cas van Veltzen, our first two drivers to get onto those flying laps as they exit the Variante. Ascari will stay on board though with the leading of that pack. If we can now get on board with the 413. James Mason, the early bird for 5-Star Esports, makes his way out through the Curva Parabolica, and he'll be our unofficial tour guide here in Monza. What a fantastic circuit we are at, and the last time we were here in the Sunday League, it was absolute riot racing, especially out of the driver now behind Mason, that being Cas van Veltzen, who will get a nice hefty tow of slipstream as we begin the runnings here in Monza. Starting down this massive opening straight here, this is where we've been taking a lot of our data for straight line speed as we head down to what is one of the most dreaded opening corner complexes in motorsports history, turns 1 and 2 here at the Variante Rettifilo. This is an absolute battleground. We have seen so much go on in this area of the track. It's so simple, but it's an absolute recipe for disaster. Down through turn 3 then, the Curva Grande on our way down towards the second of 3 Variantes in this circuit. Heading now out of the Curva Grande, down towards the Variante della Roja. Now, we've also seen, just as much as we've seen down at Rettifilo, quite a lot of action kick off at this area as well. Very tight run through turns 4 and 5. We can see, leveraging a lot of that slipstream, this has been quite easy breezy work for Cas van Veltzen, tucked right in behind the 413 of James Mason, out through the first of 2 in the Curva de Lesmo, turn 6, now into turn 7. These two looking very spry. Just off in the background between them there, you can see the next 2 times set to roll in on the charts. That's Stefan Nicolai and Josh Wellbeloved with 5-Star Esports and Nexus GT. Now heading down to the Curva de Saraglio on our way down towards the Variante Ascari, as now Van Veltzen takes the lead of this unofficial race towards the checkered line here to set the first of those times on the charts. The Variante Ascari then turns 8, 9 and 10. This is a real shell shock area for these cars. We've seen so many drivers get too overconfident on those curbs and send their car careening asunder. Will we be seeing the likes today here in what's set to be a night race at Monza? Only time will tell. Heading down towards turn 11 then, the Curva Parabolica. These two have already taken it under their wing to go absolutely flat out here. Absolutely no holds barred in this opening lap in I should say in qualifying. Down towards the line, Cas van Velzen then. First onto the timing charts of 1:48.2. Puts James Mason down in second place. Then next to the line, the number 5, Stefan Nicolai. Fastest by 4 tenths. Then up to third place goes Christian Lebay. Then up to pole position goes Melvin Milliston. To second place goes George Todd by 7 thousandths of a second there. That is an incredibly close margin to start off our first run of time. Stefan Nicolai maintains third place. Cas van Velzen down to fourth. Then next to the line, we've just seen a few more times in JM Keto to 7th. Alex Albert into 6th place. Matthias Gonalons in 9th. Now down to 10th, as we've just seen across the line a moment ago. William Bajor across the line, and also across the line was, I believe, looking at it here, that of Ben Cheeseman. So 6th and 7th for the 333 and the 114. Heading in to the first run at Monza. Then across the line a moment ago, the number 13, Dan Junior Poulin in the number 13 Ferrari. Then from behind him, we saw the Bentley of Daniel Richards, now 19th fastest. There's 2 more times enter the charts. Sam Angel up to 4th fastest. And then further down in the top 10 at this time, I believe, getting a look at it here, we saw, yes, Carl Martel actually just outside of the top 10. 11th fastest for the 999 Mustang. The 919 next across the line. And that was Anthony Cotti starting another flying lap. So heading back on with our next tide of cars. Leading that charge down towards the Curva Parabolica once again is Cas van Velzen in the number 420. Followed very closely by the 413 of James Mason. Then the number 5 of Stefan Nicolai. And then I believe just up in front of the 119 of Christian Lebay appears to be Josh Wellbeloved there in the Nexus GT McLaren. So back on board with Van Velzen down towards the line. So the 420 from the 413. Van Velzen from 5th to 4th. Mason to 6th. And then we see Stefan Nicolai up to first ahead of Melvin Milliston. Then Christian Lebay to 5th fastest, with Josh Wellbeloved yet to have set a sizable improvement. He maintains 10th position right now. Tyler Vermack across the line to 2nd fastest. Now interjecting the 2 McLarens on the front row. Melvin Milliston down to 3rd. But Stefan Nicolai holds on to pole position against the 25. 198 next to the line, so we'll see what their times lodge in on the charts here. That was for Matthias Gonalons. He's up to 16th after that last lap. The 333 of William Bajor next to the line. We'll see where he puts himself from 10th place, stays there after that last lap. The number 14 across the line we've just seen as well. Actually, sorry, the number... Yes, it was the number 14, so that was... Rover Rakotomanga with Porsche, now 19th up and ahead of Sergio Belda. Number 13, Daniel Poulin to 20th. We've seen an improvement there for not Alex Albert, I should say. It was for, I believe, JM Keto, now an improvement to 15th place. Carl Martel into 11th at this time, hunting down his fellow Mustang at the back of the top 10, William Bajor. In the number 333, formerly the 787, that number being given over to Tobias Sievert, who, as of right now, we've yet to see. There was a lot of hype surrounding Sievert's entry into this championship. I think we'll have to wait one more round before we get the earliest opportunity to see what he can do here in the field of the NLRL Sunday League. Right now, as things stand, as we head towards the halfway mark of qualifying, Stefan Nicolai, fastest in the session so far, 1:47.252. Bear in mind, Nicolai competing in his rookie season, hunting down a pole position against a seasoned grid of drivers. The number 420 of Cas van Velzen back down towards the line. Then from behind him, we can see the 413 of James Mason. So 5th and 9th at the moment. Van Velzen across the line and goes 5th, stays 5th. Mason across the line from 9th, stays 9th. What's the call for Stefan Nicolai? Is it an improvement over his fastest? No, that is not the case. The 25 next across the line. We've just seen Tyler Vermack now up to fastest, as Melvin Milliston was right in front of him, up to fastest momentarily, but a single hundredth of a second to divide the pair as we get into the 12-minute mark. This has been an ecstatic start to qualifying, with Stefan Nicolai only 42 thousandths of a second away from pole position. You're talking the entirety of the podium eclipsed by less than a half of a tenth of a second. To give some context, it's about a tenth of a second required for you to blink, so it is quite literally blink and you'll miss it between that top 3. 991 next across the line a moment ago. That was Ranko Lagovic, one of the new drivers of today, the Croatian in the number 991 Ferrari, now 18th fastest behind Matthias Gonalons, but ahead of Rover Rakotomanga in the 1-4. And next to the line, the number 74. So that's Sergio Belda close on his trails. There you can see is the number, I believe that to be the number 91. So that's Ivan Sanchez to the Holkianos cars down towards the line, 20 and 23rd. Now up to 19th for Belda. What's the call for Sanchez? Across the line, maintains 23rd position for the time being. 113 nearest to the line at this time on what appears to be, though, an invalidated lap. So Kyle Jenkins out through the curve of Parabolica. Not too far behind him is the 919 of Anthony Cotti. They're 25th and 26th on this grid. Alan Alexander having reconnected in the 315, yet to have set any times. And we're nearly halfway into today's qualifying session. The 420 next to the line then. After Anthony Cotti comes Kaz van Velzen once again on the exit of the curve of Parabolica. The 119 close in tow here. Christian LeBay will be the next to the line after the 420. Across the line goes Van Velzen up to 4th ahead of George Todd. Now on board with Christian LeBay. We know the V12 Vantage is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, on this grid today. Can't find a way ahead, though, of William Bajor. Rather reluctantly so. Out through Ascari. Melvin Milliston needs a single hundredth of a second to put over Tyler Vermack to get pole position. Right now you can see him weaving those. So he's warming himself up for another run here in Monza before he comes back into the pit lane. Bear in mind, I do believe these drivers have a limited number of tyres to play with, so they've really got to play quite tactically, knowing they're going to be chewing through these tyres in less than favourable conditions. The track is icy cold. 7 degrees here in the nighttime here in Monza. One of the coldest races I think we've seen in a long time. Milliston across the line then to start another set of flying laps. From behind him comes the number 13. We'll see to the line hopefully by the time they hit the checkered line here. Daniel Poulin with Malois racing in 21st. Can he get up and ahead of Rakota Manga in 20th place? He needed about, looking at it here, 270 thousandths of a second in order to do so. Couldn't find it on that last lap. Just gone to 74 next to the line. We already saw an improvement for Sergio Belda. Can we see one more? This time over Ranko Lagovic in 18th. Yes, we do. And up and ahead of Matthias Gonalons, no less. He's 2 positions for the price of 1 there. Great hustle for the 74 of Sergio Belda. The 113 nearest to the line then on a valid flying lap. Kyle Jenkins out through Parabolica with the 919 in hot pursuit. Anthony Cotti not too far away at all. Here comes Jenkins to the line from 25th. Can he find a place in the top 20? Very close there after that last lap. 21st, 2.280 to a 2.220. That's 6 hundredths of a second between Rakota Manga and Jenkins, just outside of that top 20. The 420 across the line from now. Cas van Velzen now exactly level with Stefan Nicolai. You have 4 drivers divided by less than a half of a tenth of a second. Absolutely remarkable stuff. So still on board with Cas van Velzen, now having equalised on the time with Stefan Nicolai. These are remarkable statistics we're seeing here in the Temple of Speed. 42 thousandths of a second is what divides 4 drivers in all, nearly eclipsing the entirety of that top 5, which is still remarkably divided by less than half a second itself. So trying to catch next on board with the nearest driver on a valid lap to the line. It's Daniel Poulin once again. And then we'll be getting on board with the 2 Holkianos cars, the 91 and the 74, Sanchez and Belda, before they hit the checkered line once more. 8 minutes left to go. Already beyond the halfway mark, and we'll get a recount of the top 10. Poulin to 20th place, up ahead of Rover Rakota Manga in the number 14. So the number 13 now triumphs in their fight to be inside the top 20. This is going to be a gruesome start coming up today in Monza. It's one of the dreaded tracks here for that lap 1 incident count. Across the line, Sanchez to 23rd, then his teammate into the pit lane, so goes the 74, Sergio Belda. The 113 nearest to the line once again. Kyle Jenkins, we've already seen continual improvement to try and make his way into that top 20. Is not too far at all from being in 21st. Can he leverage that to potentially have a go at being in the top 20 over Daniel Poulin? Across the line goes Jenkins. Sadly, no improvement this time around. The 420 amongst a crowd of cars here heading to the line once again comes Cas van Velzen. One of our likely 4 in contention for pole position. It has been so closely met between these 4 so far, and across the line goes van Velzen to no improvement. So it is so incredibly close here. The margins could not be finer for today's qualifying. Nearest to the line on what's appearing to be a valid lap appears to be the number 54. We'll try and get on board with them before they get down towards the line. That being Josh Welbelove with Nexus GT, now 2nd in the Rookies Championship. So making great progress with McLaren. The number 54 down towards the line he goes then. Welbelove just outside of the top 10 by a little under 2/10 of a second to James Mason in the 413. Across the line he goes and up to 10th in the 54. Fantastic stuff for Nexus GT and for Josh Welbelove. The number 1 nearest to the line. Here comes Melvin Milliston. Needs a single 100th across the line. And as he does so, couldn't find it. With 6.5 minutes on the line here, it is dangerously close between these two. The 25 literally just up in front of him is Tyler Vermaak, leading today's qualifying session by a single 100th to his name between the 25 and the number 1. Bear in mind, they're not exactly the only two in close proximity. You have dead level times here between Nicolai and Van Velzen on that second row. Both of these two stand just as likely as Milliston to attempt a charge towards pole position. We can see here Stefan Nicolai down towards the line in that number 5. What can he make of it as he makes his way down towards the checkered line here? And across the line, Stefan Nicolai maintains 3rd place onto another set of flying laps. Just under 6 minutes left to go here in Monza. The 113 next to the line. Here comes Kyle Jenkins from behind him, the number 12 and the number 114. But do we see an improvement from the back of that 3-car pack out of Ben Cheeseman? He maintains 9th place for the time being. As for the car in the middle of that, the number 12, that's George Todd, who right now still getting closer and closer, but not close enough to be up and ahead of Cas Van Velzen, who took that position from him not too long ago. The number 26 nearest to the line. We'll see if we can catch on board just before they get to the line. And that would be JM Keto down in 16th place. Can he find his way to the top 15? Needs 25 thousandths of a second over Nye Roberts, and across the line he goes. Sadly to no improvement. The triple, looking at it here, the 332, I almost said the triple two, but the 332, Shahan Karim 28th as he crosses the line there. The 25 nearest to the line, but seemingly by the looks of it, Tyler Vermaak having lost a little bit of steam there to Melvin Milliston. So what is the exchange between the former Season 3 championship rivals? The 25 first onto the fray with just under 5 minutes left to go. It's an improvement by Vermaak, but immediately closed back down by Melvin Milliston by in and around 900ths of a second to put himself closer and closer. Now 18 thousandths sit between these two. That gap really only ever having expanded out by 8 thousandths in favour of Tyler Vermaak. This is still one of the most finely curated front rows I think we've ever seen in the history of the NLRL Sunday League. Number 5. This is Stefan Nicolai on his way down towards the line here. The Romanian competing for 5-star esports has had already a very great resolve over the course of the season so far. Can he make his way up to pole position as he crosses the line then onto another set of flying laps? No improvement from 3rd place this time around, but he is still incredibly close. As still level on time with him is Cas Van Velzen, both of them now 135 thousandths of a second from pole position. The 113 and the 114 in unison down towards the line. So we saw the 113 across. Now we see the 114. Ben Cheeseman maintains 9th position. As for the 113, Kyle Jenkins maintains 22nd. The 413 of James Mason, another one of the 5-star esports cars just outside of the top 10, gets to the line and up to 8th place for James Mason. Now up and ahead of Sam Angel and Ben Cheeseman, pushing Josh Wellbeloved to 11th place. The 919, Anthony Cotti, next to the line for Malois Racing from 26th place for BMW. Across the line he goes and can't find his way into the top 25. The number 25 nearest to the line, then heading down through the Curva Parabolica. This is Tyler Vermaak. Now, we've already seen improvements so far, and we could even, dare I say, see a 146, a very high 146, dare I say it, for the 25, a 147, 117 to beat. Across the line comes Tyler Vermaak, and sadly to no improvement. So he's got feasibly about 2 more laps before the end of his qualifying endeavours. LeBay to the line. Can he find his way to the top 5? Across the line he goes to no improvement. Next to the line, the 607 Mustang, Kevin Quain, just inside the top 15 for Malois Racing. Here comes Quain to the line on what appears to be a valid flying lap out through turn 11. The Mustang down towards the checkered line. Can he find his way towards the top 10? He stays 14th after that last lap just gone. The 113 next on what appears to be a valid flying lap. We'll see what the current status is then for that of Kyle Jenkins. 22nd at this time. It's been a little bit of a series of plateaus so far in today's qualifying session. His teammate Ben Cheeseman currently in 10th place, I believe, having actually been forced down a peg by James Mason's earlier endeavours. Down towards the line though comes Jenkins from 22nd. Can he find his way ahead of Rover Rakotomanga in 21st or Ranko Lagovic in 20th? Neither seem to be possible at this time. One more lap then in the booking, so it seems, for Kyle Jenkins before the end of his qualifying endeavours. Next to the line on a valid flying lap is the 919 once again. Anthony Cotti currently down in 26th place on the exit of turn 11. Then from behind him, the 26, and that being JM Keto in 16th place. The 26th place car, the 919 to the line. No improvement there. Can we see one perhaps out of JM Keto following on his trails from 16th place? Not too far between himself and Nye Roberts, but just too far away at this time. 25 nearest to the line on a valid flying lap. Tyler Vermack with a bit of traffic up ahead, courtesy of the 413. Mason maintains 8th place. Vermack down towards the line. Can we, dare I say, see a 146 in today's session? Not this time around. And Vermack, content with where he's at, is satisfied with a 147, 117. That looks to be the end of the line for the 25's qualifying endeavours. Could it be a Vermack pole position? Only time will tell. With Melvin Milliston still out on track, we can see the whole of that second row having since retired to the pit lane. Stefan Nicolai and Cas van Veltzen dead level on times for the second row. Incredible at the end of this qualifying session. The 607 across the line a moment ago onto the last of their flying laps calls it quits early. Kevin Crane at the best of times, 14th place for Malois Racing. Number 13 nearest to the line on a valid flying lap. So that's Daniel Poulin with Malois down towards the line in 18th place. Can he find his way up past Belder? More so than ever, up to top 15 positions for Daniel Jr. Poulin, the number 13, up to 15th after one more blast here in Monza. Next to the line comes Kyle Jenkins from 22nd. Can he finally find his way to the top 20? Sadly, does not appear to be the case, but he's got one more lap to play. So never say never on that front. Across the line then, Taylor Wolford making his way to the line on his first qualifying session. Just got beat out by the timers there. He's 25th at the end of quali. Number 26 nearest to the line, JM Keto down through turn 11 at the end of qualifying today. Still a few more drivers to be discussed before qualifying wraps. Out through the curva parabolica. Here comes the Ferrari. JM Keto with Holkianos in 17th, up to 14th. So great resolve and very, very frustrating for Daniel Poulin. He made his way up to 15th and then knocked out of it by JM Keto's resolve at the end of quali today. The 333 is next to the line on a valid flying lap. The 114 not too far away. So we'll see what Ben Cheeseman does, though it shows that he's on an invalid lap, but it clearly ain't the case because he's up and ahead of Sam Angel. Then William Bajor to the line, but he looks to be across the line there at the best of times in 7th. Number 14 nearest to the line. Then following on from his trails, the number 198 here on his way to the line. That being Matthias Gonalons. Then from behind him, the 54 across the line. Josh Wellbeloved, he's 11th for the end of qualifying today. Matthias Gonalons up to 12th at the end of quali. Next to the line, the number 12. We'll see what the resolve is coming up in a moment's time for George Todd. In 5th place at the moment, needs just under a 10th of a second to put himself at level standing with Stefan Nicolai and Cas van Veltzen. Can he do so? Because it's 2 for the price of 1 here for the number 12 down towards the line. And sadly, no dice this time around. But here comes Melvin Milliston. 18 thousandths of a second is all he needs for pole position. But it's all too late for Milliston. Tyler Vermack on pole position by 18 thousandths of a second in what is a staggering end to qualifying today. Joint technically third, but it is the first to do it. Stefan Nicolai in 3rd place on an exact same time as Cas van Veltzen in the 420 in 4th place. More on that grid in a moment's time, but what a climactic end to qualifying. Tyler Vermack leads the charge by such a little band of time you could blink and miss it. And that's one of several tiny gaps. You can see actually the gap between the two 5-star cars there in 8th and 9th is even closer at 3 thousandths of a second we're looking at there. But of course the closest gap in the room, 3rd and 4th, exactly level between Nicolai and van Veltzen. Well, we'll get on to the discussion of that grid in just a moment's time. We do have a few articles of news, a bit of a quick-fire news round here before we get on to the grid today for round 4 of the championship. 90 minutes of racing, of course, set to follow in the first of our endurance races. So, just apologies there, a little bit of a slight technical difficulty. Well, what basically happened is we were trying to open the notes app. We ended up opening Outlook. Well, nonetheless, 4 articles of news. Aren't we surprised? And it's a bit of a quick-fire news round, first of which comes out of the world of the World Endurance Championship. After taking the World Drivers and World Constructors, Ferrari doubles down on their hypercar efforts until at least 2029, as according to them in a recent announcement. Over to the world of IndyCar as Ryan Hunter-Reay joins McLaren Arrow for the 2026 Indianapolis 500. In the world of GT and the GT World Cup, to be more specific, Antonio Fuoco wins in Macau for their first ever win with Ferrari. And in the world of MotoGP, Marco Bezzecchi wins in the Valencian Grand Prix, to give us 4 articles of news today. So, onto the grid in just a moment's time. This is set to be a real riot here under the stars in Monza. Who will emerge victorious? 90 minutes of racing set to decide their fate. Looking at the grid for round 4 of the championship, 3 minutes to go before the start of the formation lap. Tyler Vermack by 18 thousandths of a second on pole position will lead that charge on the inside down towards the Variante Rettifilo in what is going to be absolute chaos, no doubt about it. And on the front row alongside him then, Melvin Milliston, the championship leader and defending champion after Season 3, reunited with his Season 3 championship rival looking for revenge. Stefan Nicolai makes dead set of the time alongside Cas van Veltzen for a joint second row, third and fourth for the 5 and the 420. Rounding out that top 5 then, George Tarden rounding out the third row alongside him, 6th place for Christian Lebay. William Bajor in 7th place with James Mason in 8th, Ben Cheeseman in 9th, and Sam Angel rounds out the top 10. Then looking further behind outside of the top 10 in 11th place, Josh Wellbeloved alongside Matthias Gonalons in 12th place, Carl Martel in 13th with Alex Albert in 14th place. Rounding out the top 15, JM Keto, and rounding out what is that 8th row is Kevin Quain in the 607 Malois Racing Mustang. Daniel Poulon, his teammate, down in 17th place alongside Nye Roberts in 18th, Sergio Belda in 19th place, and Ranko Lagovic on his first race in the Sunday League rounds out the top 20. Rover Rakoda in 21st place in the number 14 Porsche is alongside Kyle Jenkins in 22nd, Ivan Sanchez in 23rd with Ben Hart in 24th, Taylor Wolford in 25th alongside Anthony Cotti in 26th place, Daniel Richards in 27th, Shahan Karim in 28th, and Alan Alexander at the back of the field in what is a 29 car grid here at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. That is a death sentence you are talking of here, and heading down towards Rettifilo. We'll have to be watching this one between closed fingers, because this is going to be quite a hair-raising set of incidents possibly to follow. Of course, as mentioned before, it's the most dreaded opening section of any race at any track in any configuration. It is a universally feared chicane down at turns 1 and 2. The Variante Rettifilo, we have seen so many stories. We have seen so many incidents, and we could definitely see quite a few more today. So with just about a minute left to go, to bring back up another article we had a little earlier on in today's race, that's the discussion of top-end speed. Now, this was in a speed trap we set between the exit of the curve of Parabolica and the braking zone down towards the Variante Rettifilo. So it's on this opening straight you see right here. It pictures Aston Martin and Ford as the 2 fastest manufacturers on this field. The V12 Vantage and the Mustang did 175 miles an hour, or exactly 283 kilometers an hour. Then in, what is that, 3rd place overall, but 2nd in terms of statistics, it's Ferrari with a 281 top end, or 174 miles an hour. That's alongside BMW also having done the same. Mercedes sneaks in between BMW and Lexus, doing 280 kilometers an hour. The RCF by Lexus taking 279 kilometers an hour. We get on board here with Tyler Vermack, the man who will be taking us through the formation lap, looking for revenge. He's not had a race win since round 1 of the championship back in Indianapolis. We'll see exactly how it pans out for him today. Will luck be on his side? Only time will tell. Stay on board here as we continue the discussion of straight line speed. Bentley with 172 miles per hour in the top end, or 278 kilometers an hour. McLaren doing 278, just as much as well. That's an improvement over 170 miles an hour, which they had last season on the data we were able to take. Aston Martin's V8 Vantage remains on legacy data with 172 miles an hour, now technically the slowest in class. So to give a reminder as well to the new regulations being brought in for the sort of new generation of the endurance race, it is a 1 mandatory pit stop rule, but it is for fuel, and it is a completely uncapped strategy, so no minimum fueling time. They say that the minimum on paper would technically be 3.2 seconds, because that is what's required to stop and drop and then go away. But it leaves the strategy very open-ended for what is going to be 90 minutes of racing here in Monza. It will be totally open-ended for drivers as to whether or not they want to take tyres, whether they want to actually refuel the car, start on lower fuel loads. We see already starting from the pit lane is Kyle Jenkins in the 113 5-star esports McLaren. He'll start 29th then of this 29-car grid. Just one moment. We stay on board then with the man on pole position, Tyler Vermaak in the 25 exclusive esports Mustang. So this could absolutely be, with the brand new regulations, a bit more of a strategy fight than we were previously expecting. We saw with the new pit stop regulations in the double stint 2.0 format that it did introduce a great degree of strategy that gave great resolve for certain drivers, namely among them Christian Lebay back in Valencia, where he had great resolve over both races, utilizing an unorthodox pit strategy. We see here it's a bit more of an unorthodox starting strategy for Tyler Vermaak, trying to slow everyone back down to perhaps try and leach some of the heat out of their tyres. Now, we know tyre heat conservation is going to be of utmost priority in today's race. 7 degrees on track, 7 degrees ambient. It's very wintry conditions, uncharacteristically so for a track like Monza, where we've normally seen the tarmac bake in the searing Italian heat. We don't have any of those graces. Mother Nature not here to protect us this time around. It's all on the drivers to keep the heat in those Pirellis. Heading down towards the Variante Ascari. Making our way out of Ascari. This is really going to be a bit of a horror show, folks. Heading down towards Variante Rettifilo with 29 cars, 28 of which on track. 1 from the pit lane is still a daunting premise indeed, especially if you're up in that top 5 there. Vermaak, Milliston, Nikolai, Van Veltzen and Todd are going to be feeling the world's weight on their shoulders as they round turn 11 for the start of the run down towards the checkered line to kick off. 90 minutes of racing up the road for us here in round 4 of season 4, the NLRL Sunday League, and reeling from an ultra close top 4. Where could we see our drivers exit today's race? It could be really anything between now and the checkered flag, so get ready for it. Get ready to rumble, because out through turn 11 with 28 cars in all on track, 14 either side of it, with 1 from the pit lane leading that charge, and the slow procession now 2 abreast as we head through Parabolica. Tyler Vermaak, this is make or break for the 25. The South African talent, who was the runner-up of last season, now has the opportunity to quench what has been a 3-race-long drought of race wins. Let's see how he can tackle this, as right alongside him is Melvin Milliston. Let's see how this one unfolds for round 4 of the championship. 90 minutes against the clock here in the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza at the Temple of Speed. Without further ado, we are green and racing. 90 minutes against the clock, an hour and a half between now and the checkered flag, and a great getaway by both on the front row. We can see it's already a drag race between Vermaak and Milliston. Down towards the Variante Rettifilo. Vermaak holds the inside. You can see things already getting incredibly wide in the rows behind. Heading down towards turn 1. Nikolai up on Van Veltzen, but Milliston takes the run off. So too does Vermaak. So too does Van Veltzen. So too does Lebay. It's a whole swarm of drivers cutting over Rettifilo. They couldn't get the car slowed down in time. Further down the line, we can see here Carl Martel, 13th place at the moment, up and ahead of JM Keto and Alex Albert. We can see tucking out onto the gravel. There's a car in trouble, seemingly there. Having since resolved itself, you can see getting really squirrely. That's the McLaren of Josh Wellbeloved trying to make positions up as we hit De La Rosa. George Todd has dropped massively down the order there, now caught up by the Lexus of Alex Albert. We see yellow flags are out. And we can see a whole bunch of drivers caught up in there. That's Ranko Lagovic in and amongst the fray. We can also see one of the other new drivers. That's Rover Rakotomanga in the 14 car. Both of them in trouble down at De La Rosa. Green flags back out then as we exit that section. Drivers having a little spot of bother over the first 2 Lesmos here, as to be expected, with pretty much every corner on the table today. Looking behind the view of Daniel Jr. Poulon, you can see slowly creeping up on him is Ben Hart and Taylor Walford. Looking back up through the field, we see George Todd Nearly having been caught up. It was actually by Sam Angel, not Alex Albert, so that was my mistake there. Speaking of Sam Angel, he is under imminent attack right now. If we try and catch on board with Angel, as right up and alongside him, that's William Bajot, who was on 3rd place and a rookie's win last round in Imola. Now gets up and ahead of Angel to take the lead of the rookies. Out through turn 11 he goes. Up to 7th place goes the 333. Up and ahead of the 719. From behind him, there's Alex Albert, the man we were thinking of on the exit of turn 11. You can see just the straight line speed difference between Ford and Ferrari. They go heading down towards the Variante Rettifilo. Now, let's take this one into consideration. No slouch here is JM Keto. He was actually one of the drivers we were taking data from when it came to those straight line speeds. Speaking of Lexus, is back on once again with Sam Angel. From behind him, you can see Stefan Nicolai having dropped to 9th, now being intercepted by Ben Cheeseman through the Curva Grande. That's going to look up front here as having taken the lead of the race. Cas van Velzen now leads ahead of Tyler Vermaak and Melvin Milliston. These three were the runners-up in that title contention. Back in Season 3, they're reunited as Vermaak takes the leap up the inside at the first of the two Lesmos here. Turn 6, running out wide goes the 420. Milliston following on through, looking down towards Lesmo 2 here. Van Velzen holds the outside on the 25 of Tyler Vermaak. Can he stave off that chance to get back into the race lead? Heading down the curve to Saraglio. This is mayhem here in Monza. Heading down towards the Variante Ascari. Van Velzen could lead ahead of Vermaak. He's already taken the position once. Can he take it twice? He's up on the inside. Right behind him is Christian Lebay. It's 4 cars in contention for the lead. Contact between the 420 and the 25. Van Velzen keeps going, but he's been shoulder checked down to 2nd place. Milliston 3rd. Lebay right behind in 4th. Getting a look on board here with Melvin Milliston. You can see now having crept up alongside him, now over his nose. Christian Lebay up to 3rd place, now chasing down the Mercedes and the Ford at the front of the pack. Out through Parabolica, he's going to have to cling to the coattails of that Aston Martin. Bear in mind, it's one of the fastest things going here in Monza, 175 miles an hour it's capable of. That's a few more over what McLaren can give Milliston at this time. Vermaak leads, Van Velzen 2nd, Lebay 3rd, Milliston in 4th. Mason not too far behind at all in 5th, but having to take the runoff. Melvin Milliston runs wide out through turn 1. Very nearly collected Christian Lebay in his effort, but that's disaster for the number 1. Still succeeds position back to 3rd place, but now soon to be intercepted by Lebay up and ahead. This is not great news for Melvin Milliston. He's had 3 race wins in a row. That was race win number 11 last round in Imola. He's looking for race win number 12, but this has been a less than ideal start all in the opening 5 minutes here in Monza, running out wide and taking the runoff. Down at Della Rosia was the number 12 of George Todd against William Bajot in the fight of 6th place. Down through the first of the 2 here in the Curva de Lesmo, turn 6, now to turn 7. Lebay up to the podium. Van Velzen chasing Vermaak. We know these two like to get their elbows out, so we're far from over in terms of theatrics. Looking further around the field, we can see some fighting going on further down the order between, I believe, one of the BMWs there. We want to try and get a look as to who that was. Oh, the looks of it here, that looked to be Ben Hart in the fight of 17th place. It might actually be someone else. It's super hard now to identify all of the cars in and amongst the fray. Into the pits, though, the 332, Shahan Karim, early doors into the pits. Could that be an early DNF on the charts coming up soon? Only time will tell. Taking a look around the field, pretty much any which way you look, it is mayhem. George Todd chasing James Mason, 0.2 of a second away from William Bajot, who now moves up to 5th place, up and ahead of the 413. The Ferrari looking to try and run high here out through turn 11. He's washed out over the nose, then right on his trail at the moment, also having washed out through Parabolica was Sam Angel. Right now, as it stands, Van Velzen seemingly up into the lead here against Vermaak. 65 thousandths of a second between the pair. A drag race down towards turn 1. Can Van Velzen confirm the lead here? Down through Rettifilo he goes, up into the lead of this race. Cas Van Velzen with the fastest time so far. The number 420 leads in Monza ahead of Vermaak. Lap 3. Already a brand new race leader then. Tyler Vermaak loses the lead out to Van Velzen. Now this is where he's really got to keep himself calm. We've seen time and time again, when he gets overtaken, he quickly hurries himself into an imminent fight back. Otherwise, he fears losing the target ahead. This is what's led to so many problems over the course of his sim racing career. But you can see now definitely unshackling himself from these old habits. Tyler Vermaak is right onto the back end of Cas Van Velzen down through Lesmo 1. In a Lesmo too, you can see there's 4 cars in all in that contention for the race lead. Leading that charge, Cas van Velzen with Mercedes AMG. This is in the fight for the race lead right now for the number 420. The 25 right behind him, then right behind the 25 is the 119. Right behind the 119 is the number 1. On their way down the curve to Saraglio. Up toward the Varianti Ascari we go. You can see having dropped away a little bit, though, was Melvin Milliston starting to flag behind the rest of the field. We see a little bit of an upset on the way into Ascari for Christian Lebay. That does leave him open to a move into 3rd place, potentially here between Lebay and Milliston. Can the number 1 return to the podium steps? What will be the scale of the fight being put up here by the Aston Martin? He knows straight line speed is very much so on his side. Heading out now down through Parabolica, looking for the more aggressive of the lines past the apex. That McLaren is wasting absolutely no time to get back up to 3rd place. Christian Lebay putting on an admirable show of defence here on our way back on to the opening straight at the start of lap 4. Looking at where it stands here, Vermaak has lost a lot of time through Parabolica, now 8/10 away at the last interval to Cas van Velzen. Could it be a solidified lead for the opening stint here for Van Velzen? It sure looks to be that way, as down through Rettifilo, the closer fight in that top 5 right now is happening between Lebay and Milliston. Running out wide there across the exit of the Rettifilo. I believe that to be Sam Angel at this time, the 719 in trouble. Now drops in behind George Todd in 8th place. That's several drivers having since done that. The lack of heat on track right now has really played numbers into how their braking distance is affected. We've seen it time and time again right now over the course of both qualifying and now into the race itself. We see George Todd looking to get side by side with James Mason. A little bit of pushing and shoving between the 413 and the number 12 on the exit of De La Rogia down towards Lesmos. Also, just to note as well, the fight of 2nd place looking very, very close indeed. We were watching just a moment there between Christian Lebay and Tyler Vermaak. Vermaak now having lost 1.2, now actually north of 1.3 seconds to Cas van Velzen in the lead of this race. After 10 minutes, Mercedes lead. Oh, we see trouble there. That's for Vermaak. He's off at Ascari. Into the wall goes the number 25. Tyler Vermaak crashes in turns 8, 9, and 10. It's disastrous right now in the opening 10 minutes. Early doors drama for Tyler Vermaak. The 25 into the wall. He's back up and running, but now down quite a way, having now seemingly seceded position to what it appears there to be behind the 114. That was the 999 of Karl Martel. So Vermaak out of the top 10. This could be absolutely detrimental for his championship hopes right now. He found himself pushed out of the top 5 at the end of Imola. He can barely make his way around turn 11. Surely that's a dive for the pit lane. In goes Vermaak out of the top 10. This is not the start he was looking for. Started from pole position, now out of the top 10. Milliston left by his lonesome then on the podium to command his charge towards 2nd place. Christian Lebay equalizing on his best result in his entire Sunday League career right now. 2nd place has been the best mark despite him taking Season 1's championship. Never once has seen a race win in the Sunday League. Could today be the day with Van Velzen in charge? It doesn't look likely, but never say never. We've already seen extraordinary things inside of that top 5. So, to recount how things have just unfolded here after the opening 10 minutes of racing, Cas van Velzen leads Christian Lebay in 2nd in a very close fight with Melvin Milliston in 3rd. William Bajor up to 4th place. James Mason at the back of the top 5 right now, up and ahead of George Todd in 6th. Sam Angel in 7th place. Stefan Nicolai in 8th. And Ben Cheeseman in 9th, rounding out the top 10. Karl Martel. And looking at some of the nearer fights on track right now, you'd be looking for Dan Poulin in the number 13 Malois Ferrari, chasing down Alex Albert, his teammate at the Malois Racing Team, so unlikely to be anywhere near the degree of ferocity we've seen of quite a few fights today so far. Matthias Gollolon's chasing Taylor Wolford for 17th place. You can see the Porsche very closely shadowed by that bright orange and green McLaren, the 198 of Gollolon's, down through Ascari. This was the same area that claimed Tyler Vermaak not long ago, and it very nearly looks to claim the 198 of Matthias Gollolon's. Into the wall goes Gollolon's, another victim here at Ascari. This one down in the Rookies Championship. Trouble for Matthias Gollolon's. He tries to rejoin the track, very nearly collects a car with him, having to run out wide to get around, and was the 113 of Kyle Jenkins. Also down in that section at this time appears to be the number 91. So trouble also for Ivan Sanchez. That makes 3 cars caught out at Ascari. Looking at a nearby fight here, Kevin Quain versus Alex Albert. Now having joined the fight up and ahead of his teammate Daniel Poulon. Down towards Retafilo we go. You see right behind him another close fight. Alan Alexander having carved his way up the field to the top 15. Up and ahead of JM Quito. It's a battle on 3 Ferraris, Malois, Euro Titans and Hulkianos contending for 14th place. Looking for where things stand inside of that podium right now. The gap is closing. LeBay could catch the leading Mercedes of Cas van Veltzen right up his backside though by 0.3 of a second at the last interval. You can see on track it is evidently much, much closer than that. Is Melvin Milliston in 3rd place. So an extraordinarily close fight to kick things off. You can see even further down the road, it is just a storm of steel heading down through the Lesmos here on board with Alex Albert. Then behind him is Kevin Quain, his teammate. And then behind him is Daniel Poulon. Then behind him is Alan Alexander and JM Quito. All of these drivers separated by just around front to back, about 3 seconds there. Remarkably thin margins we're talking. As we see now side by side, looks to be 2 Ferraris. The 315 tried his luck there on the 13 of Poulon. No dice, though, on his way into Ascari. Can he find luck on the exit of Ascari? Alan Alexander is definitely trying his luck here up on the back end of the number 13. Daniel Poulon has got the world's weight on his shoulders to defend for his teammates up the road against the new signing into the Sunday League. His debut with Euro Titans in the Sunday League. The first ever driver to do so in the team's championship. And what an impression. Early doors here for the 315. Yellow flags out, though, as the 991 in trouble. And that's Ranko Lagovic with Ferrari. Another victim claimed down at Ascari. He's down from 20th place. Right now, we can see things remain as they are on the podium. It's Mercedes from Aston Martin from McLaren. Ford in 4th place. BMW now having since been passed up by Ferrari. George Todd up to 5th place. James Mason is down to 6th, but he is looking very, very intent at fighting back to the top 5 here. He's not going to be taking that one sitting down very close to the back end of the number 12. That could be one to watch in the near future. We see things are still incredibly close. As taking a spin there, that's Alex Albert with Lexus off of Della Rosia, makes contact with one of the Hulkianos Ferraris. Caught out there was JM Quito. A big shunt there through Della Rosia. Drama between the 26 and the 36. Alex Albert caught out there. A spin in through Della Rosia. An unsafe rejoin. Clatters the 26 behind him. JM Quito's up the road now from Albert, but with damage on the nose. Looking back to a nearby fight. Oh, as I say that looked like trouble down at the Lesmos. That was for the 36 once again. That's Alex Albert running into even more trouble, so it seems. Running off at Lesmo 1, having a rejoin over Lesmo 2. There's Ranko Lagovic alongside, now up and ahead. And behind him there, you can see Nye Roberts and Daniel Richards. It is a real down and out day here for Alex Albert, down past 25th place on today's grid. Looking for nearby fights at this time. One very, very close at hand. Josh Wellbeloved now up the road from Kevin Quain. You can see right on his back end there's Alan Alexander chasing down the 607 Mustang. So with Josh Wellbeloved looking closer and closer out of top 10, we are now looking at a fight here for Alan Alexander in 13th. Carved his way through the field from the race start here in the opening 15 minutes, heading down towards Retafilo, looking at a chance of 12th place. Kevin Quain with a less than ideal exit has left himself open to the Ferrari, looking to try and go potentially around the outside at the Curva Grande. Tucks back into a more aggressive run past the apex here. We could be seeing some side-by-side action between the two on their way down towards Della Rosia. What is the call then for Kevin Quain? You can see Alan Alexander was trying his chances to look up the inside. Later on the brakes was the Mustang, so holds his position down through Della Rosia. Up the road there, you can see is the 54 of Josh Wellbeloved. To give an update as well, Millicent still charging towards LeBay for second place. Right now, we're watching the fight of 11th play out in front of us. We're watching from the man in the middle's point of view. This is Kevin Quain with Malois Racing in the 607 Ford Mustang. Well beloved up the road from him by only 7/10 of a second. Down the curve to Saraglio. You can see it's much, much closer between these three as they head down towards Ascari. This could get quite hairy between these three here. We've already seen stability concerns across all manufacturers. Will we be seeing any scares on our way through turns 7, 8 and 9? Well, turns 8, 9 and 10, I should say. No, not this time around. We can see a great charge, though, on the exit of Ascari for Alan Alexander. This is all right now, technically, more so for the fight of 12th place in the favour of Kevin Quain. He's having to defend this position off as he's got more chances of losing that out than he has on gaining on Well Beloved ahead. Out through turn 11 we go. Just to give an update as well on the Milliston v LeBay fight, we see into the pit lane goes the number 25, Tyler Vermack, back into the pit lanes. So things seemingly haven't gotten even worse right now. More damage for Vermack. Could he be out of round 4? He pulls it into the pit lane and in there on an emergency stop. What is the call for Tyler Vermack? Started from pole position. This has been nothing short for him than a disaster. And as we've seen it there, the 25 is out of round 4. We also see trouble here for Kevin Quain down. Retafilo now loses out position to Taylor Wolford. He drops out of the top 15. So it seems actually, sorry, to the back of the top 15. Now Wolford gets the position in. One of 2 new Porsches in this race, but he seems to be benefiting a lot greater than the other. That would have been Rakota Manga, now out of this race in the number 14. So we'll catch back on now with an update from the fight of 2nd place, Milliston versus LeBay. Let's see if we can catch on board with a few fights in and amongst the top 5. Here's the one happening right behind that battle on the podium. This is for 4th place, William Bajor versus George Todd. So this is a great little fight we're seeing on our hands here. Right behind them, Sam Angel has got his hands full. Let's see if we can get on board with him here, as right on his tail is James Mason. Mason looking up the inside, down through Parabolica. That was quite the lofty leap for him there. The number 11 into the pit lane now. Emergency stop for the number 11 of Nye Roberts. As now up to 6th place. It's actually technically there to... Yes, 6th place, my mistake, is James Mason. That was quite the move for the 413, but all for naught because here comes the 719 Sam Angel, 5.4 litre naturally aspirated Lexus V8 engine down towards Retafilo. Around the outside, it is contact between the two. They collide at Retafilo. Another incident on this track. It just doesn't stop here in Monza. Not 20 minutes in, and we have even more to talk about. Currently leading that charge then, Cas van Veltzen has already thwarted expectations. A lightning offensive by the Dutch talent. The Flying Dutchman incarnate, the 420, leads in this race by 2.4 seconds. Looking on that fight for the podium, we can see the Milliston getting close, but I want to get a look with the fight behind here because George Todd has really got his hands full in his fight against William Bajor. We see these two absolutely inseparable on their way down towards Ascari. Let's stay on board with Bajor. This is the fight of 4th place we're on about. On board with the rookie sensation, William Bajor, on his way down towards Ascari. So on the exit of Ascari, that puts half a second on the number 12 of George Todd. How you were able to outgun a Ferrari in a corner-intensive section of the track on a low aero setup, I mean, that is witchcraft we're talking here for the 333 of Bajor. Into the pits at the moment, Kevin Quain and JM Keto, the 607 and the 26, having since come into the pit lane before them on what is now cleared. Much earlier on in today's race, the 36 of Alex Albert after that incident down at Della Roja. Bajor holds middle ground of the road in towards the Variante Retafilo. He knows that George Todd is trying to get the more aggressive line to set himself up for a run out of Curva Grande. He's no fool. He's not going to be taken for a fool so easily by the 12. You watch over the rear view, you can see where he's able to open the taps. It's a 5.4 litre Ford Performance V8 engine, co-engineered by M Sport UK. The same folks behind the Ford Puma Rally 1, fun fact there. Also worked on the engine for the Bentley Continental. Also on this track today, courtesy of Daniel Richards. Right now, though, in what was a 29-car grid, we are down to 25 cars. That is a 4-car fatality right now here in Monza. 4 cars out of this rate. Among them has been that of Tyler Vermack, possibly the most impactful DNF we've seen as he started from pole position. Out through the curve to Saraglio, we can see that Peugeot under siege here from George Todd. Further up the road, LeBay continues to open the margins up and ahead of Melvin Milliston. So at this rate, they may catch up to Milliston before he can catch up to the Aston Martin in second place. This is ecstatic stuff we're seeing here inside of that top 5. Peugeot with a royal effort to keep Todd at bay. Now puts more than enough of a gap on the exit of Ascari. Now 1.1 seconds clear of that Ferrari. That's domination of the middle and final for the number 333. Looking at nearby fights, Carl Martel less than a second away from Sam Angel, now behind Stefan Nicolai. Getting a look at where the standings are concerned after nearly half an hour of racing. We can see that even though the gaps have been opening up, they are still quite short between Milliston and LeBay. But right now leading the charge as George Todd peels to the pit lane. Early doors strategy here. What could be the call for George Todd? We've seen some unorthodox strategies emerge from the number 12. He's in on lap 12. With an hour and 7 minutes left to go, early doors pit stops. It doesn't appear to be any damage, so this is definitely going to be a curious strategy to study here for Todd. He was held up around the back end of Peugeot. I think his wake-up call was that tackle of the Varianti Ascari, the Ferrari clearly lagging behind the Ford now. And that was possibly his deciding factor. Now he's into the pits. So looking at where things stand right now, Cas van Velzen continues to lead nearly half an hour into this race with Christian LeBay in second place. Now 1.1 seconds up the road from Melvin Milliston in third. William Peugeot secures fourth place for now with James Mason in fifth place. Ben Cheeseman in sixth place with Stefan Nicolai in seventh place. Sam Angel in eighth and Carl Martel in ninth. Josh Wellbeloved up to the top 10. Alan Alexander in 11th place. What a royal effort there for the Euro Titans talent. Puts himself more than halfway up the field. Started toward the back today in that 3.15. Daniel Poulon in 12th place ahead of Anthony Cotti in 13th. Taylor Wolford in 14th place. You can see there in the Porsche just making his way around the second part of De La Rogia. Behind him is Kyle Jenkins in the 1.13. He rounds out the top 15 ahead of Ben Hart in 16th place. Right behind him you can see is that McLaren from earlier on. We saw an incident that put him down where he is right now. The 198 of Matthias Gonalons out through the first of the two Lesmo coasts. Behind them, Ranko Lagovic in 18th place. Sergio Belda 19th with George Todd now having pitted early. Finds himself in 21st. Ivan Sanchez up to 20th. Todd 21st. Quito 22nd. Quain 23rd. Karim 24th. And Albert 25th. Todd, the only of which to have voluntarily put himself in that pit lane for strategy alone. See, though, this fight right now, Hart v Gonalons, this could get hairy between the pair. This is all in contention right now for 16th place. You can see the back end on that BMW swaying asunder out through Ascari. Incredibly unstable for Ben Hart. Can he hold on to that one much longer is the real question. With just how cold it is, as a matter of fact, it's gotten even colder since qualifying. It started today at 7 degrees. It's now down to 6. Out through turn 11 we go. Slip sliding around this track here. Very little grip to be found for the number 40 BMW. Ben Hart up against it with Matthias Gonalons in hot pursuit of 16th place. The McLaren's got him in the slipstream. Now tucks in to the outside line. He'll be going around the outside if he can get later on the brakes. In towards Rettifilo. The BMW, though, holding him to the left-hand side of the track. Great defense by Ben Hart. You can see it's a big slide, very nearly contact between the pair as they exit Rettifilo. This is fantastic news for Ranko Lagovic, the Croatian, in the number 991. Slowly makes his way into a fight for 16th place. If these two slip over one another, that's 2 positions for the price of 1. Further up the road, we can see a close fight going on here. Taylor Wolford up in 14th, being pressured at this time by the 113 of Kyle Jenkins. Further behind, you can still see that 3-car fight between Hart, Gonalons and Lagovic. Also a close fight up the order at this time. Josh Wellbeloved versus Carl Martel. 6 tenths and slowly closing between the pair as they exit Ascari. More on that in a moment's time. Jenkins still in pursuit of Wolford. Now we have a few gaps in our speed data regarding Porsche. What we were able to scrape up is that they are lacking behind the rest of the field in terms of straight line speed. They make up for it in maneuverability. So that's something Wolford's going to have to take quite heavy into consideration as he enters Ascari here. Can he keep the McLaren at bay by the time we get to the straightaways? We see into the pit lane comes James Mason with damage on the nose of that 413. For how long is this exactly been going on for? Who knows? But into the pit lane comes Mason with seemingly damage on his 413 BMW. That looks to be an emergency pit stop we're looking at here. More reactionary than strategic for Mason. Well beloved in pursuit right now for 8th place. Then further behind, getting back on board with the fight we were watching not too long ago between Jenkins and Wolford. Wolford peels into the pit lane in that damaged Porsche. Now we know, unlike Mason, he's been carrying that damage for a lot longer than the 413. This has been something he's been holding on to, I think, since the start of the race today. Lagovic into the pit lanes as well. The 991 Ferrari into the pit. You can see, though, having made his way into the pits before Wolford. So could that be an indication of an emergency stop for Ranko Lagovic? He was very close into that fight not too long ago. By how much longer is that set to stay? You see here up the road, the 332, an onlooker to a fight right now for the 91 and the 12. So George Todd versus Ivan Sanchez, as Todd up the inside, but is forced to again take the runoff. This is the Achilles heel of every driver today. Surely we are going to be seeing some drive-through penalties creep up on the grid if this is to stay the same way. 1 hour and 2 minutes left to go here in Monza. Right now, your top three remains the same as the last report. Van Velzen, LeBay, and Milliston now as their gaps continue to grow. Nearest fight inside the top 10, as we can see drama there for the number 54. That's Josh Wellbeloved, who's crashed down at Ascari. We don't yet know by how far away he's been pushed down the field. I think records indicate here he's down to 11th as the 919 is nearest to him. That's Anthony Cote in 12th place. Alan Alexander into the pit lane with damage. So there was an incident between the 315 and the 54. Both Alan Alexander and so it seems as well Josh Wellbeloved into the pit lane. An absolutely mangled set of cars make their way in after an incident at Ascari. Into the pit lane they go. A stop-go 30-second penalty for Taylor Wolford in the number 6. He took his pit stop we just saw a moment ago, but he sped into the pit lane. That puts the number 6 with a stop-go 30 to serve in the next 2 laps. So drama as we get through the half an hour mark in today's race. It also quickly quells the chances for that close fight inside the top 10. It does leave things a relatively tepid affair from front to back. We see for Kyle Jenkins, he won't be arguing with a few extra positions under his belt. Puts him up from 13th to 11th, up and ahead of Alexander and Wellbeloved. Ben Cheeseman, I've really got to hand it to him here. That 114 has been on a mission from the start of today's race. Up into the top 5, up and ahead of his teammate Stefan Nicolai. Right now makes a podium position. The rookies leading once again, William Bajor, admittedly outside of an overall podium, but the 333 has been a rookie sensation since his entry last round in Imola. We see into the pit lanes now is Melvin Milliston in the number 1. Earlier pit lane run than the cars in front of him. So this is also strategically enforced like we have seen out of that of George Todd. Speaking of George Todd, he's now up to 14th place, up and ahead of both Ivan Sanchez, Alan Alexander, Josh Wellbeloved, and Sergio Belda. So this early pit stop strategy, we do know it's possible for the drivers to do the full hour. There's no arguments among that. You also see as well into the pits an emergency stop for Shahan Karim. The 332 could be out of this race. Yellow flags for the pit lane for the arrival of the 332. So it could definitely be suggested for Millicent. He's attempting to cover the undercut now away from the number 12. Right now, as the number 12 exits Ascari, we see Milliston making his way out of the pit lane. So he's definitely done more than enough here, but will strategy be on his side come the end of this race? That was a very, very short stop for the number 1 of Melvin Milliston. He emerges from the pit lane here behind the 198 of Matthias Gonalons, so down to 12th place for Milliston. Gonalons moves up. In the pits at the moment, then, we have Josh Wellbeloved and Taylor Wolford, both of them caught up in some kind of incident not long ago. We actually see for Wolford's sake, he is back in for serving that stop-go 30-second penalty that he was dished out for his first run into the pit lane. It was actually Wellbeloved and
Alan Alexander that were in that pit lane in relation to one another. I believe there was that incident down through Ascari not long ago that brought both of them in at the same time. Both of them back out on track. Alexander in 17th, well below exiting the pits, so it seems right now in 21st. The stop and go for the number 6 of Taylor Wolford has been cleared, so he is now clear to continue. Looking for where the nearest fights are concerned, we can see Sergio Belda chasing his teammate JM Quito in the 26 Ferrari up the road. He's in the number 74 Ford Mustang as they make their way down the curve of the Saraglio towards the Variante Ascari. After 30 minutes, they've separated by quite a way here amongst the grid. So now we see a lot more strategically minded thinking coming into the next 58 minutes of racing, but it has been an incredibly chaotic start here in the second of 2 races in Italy. Imola gave us drama. Now this gives us suspense. As we see side by side there up the road from Belda. Running out wide was, I believe, there was one of the BMW cars. Looking at it here, trying to gauge exactly who it was. It wasn't the 413, it wasn't the 91. So it leaves only really the 40 who was not in that section. So I want to know if exactly happened there. I think it was the 91 who makes his way. That is a very bizarre one indeed, getting back on board then with Milliston. Gonalons up the road from him there, already being intercepted by the approaching number 1 McLaren, so looking to get back up into 11th place goes Melvin Milliston on the early doors charge back to the top 10. Right now, your top 3 as we exit the 30 minutes into this hour and a half through the first third of racing is Cas van Velzen leading by a landslide. 4.6 seconds to Christian Lebay in second, with William Bajor in third and leading in the Rookies Championship. Or looking in the Rookies Division, I should say, for this race. While the progress that he's bringing to the table, there's very little to suggest that he can't overtake Sam Angel by the end of this season. He may have entered late, but he has not entered without determination. Bajor third overall in this race, leading in division as well. Cheeseman fourth. Third in pros. As for the nearest fight, it still exists between the 2 McLarens, now having since wrapped itself up. Milliston to 11th, Gonalons to 12th as we enter the Variante Ascari, the number 1 up through turns 8, 9 and 10. Slowly creeping towards a top 10. I see a gap that's starting to form up here between... Oh, incident there for Kyle Jenkins down at Parabolica. Clipped the inside wall after a little spot of over-rotation. Not enough to compel him to the pit lane, but that was a little bit of upset for the 5-star Esports number 113 McLaren. We also see a gap starting to develop here. Nikolai versus Angel. This is for the 2nd place spot in the Rookies Division in today's race. The 719 chasing down the number 5. You can see those two just separated there by about 3.1 seconds. In between the pair. Looking back to where things are concerned with the 2 McLarens, you can see the gap already having opened up between Gonalons and Milliston. Very little contention in regards to that. No contest for 11th place. So let's see if we can catch a few onboards on this track right now. 5 seconds between Martel and Angel for 6th place. Carl Martel has had a strong contention today with Malois Racing. Finds himself alongside Daniel Poulon inside of that top 10 for the time being. They're 7th and 8th with 55 minutes left to go. See another Malois car having since already come into the pits. The 607 of Kevin Quain, 7.7 seconds and closing, so it seems, to Alan Alexander with Euro Titans Endurance 315. More incidents though down at Ascari. The yellow flags are out for the 113. That's imminent trouble for one of the 5-star esports cars. I believe that to be Kyle Jenkins with a spot above her. Let's see if we can catch the 113 at this time to see what the state of affairs is as he makes his way out of Ascari. Is he harmed? Yes. He is. Serious damage by the looks of things, but it looks like enough for him to keep going. We'll see what the verdict, though, is by 5-star Esports, heading out through turn 11. You can see a considerable downturn in performance, so looking to be beckoned to the pit lane comes Kyle Jenkins. Into the pits he goes, so an emergency pit stop for 5-Star Esports number 113, Kyle Jenkins, with a crash down at Ascari, followed into the pit lane there by Ben Hart with the number 40 Nexus GT BMW. This is all falling into play here for George Todd, now up to 12th place, getting closer and closer to Matthias Gonalons, and more poignantly, closer and closer to Melvin Milliston. That gap, though, still quite monstrously large, upward of about 20 to 18 seconds between the pair. You see here for Bajor, we've seen already a few of the front runners take that initiative into the pit lane. We've not seen any activity from the 420 or the 119. Will we be next seeing the likelihood for William Bajor as he's reunited with his teammate Shahan Karim in the number 332? Both of these two drivers of the VEC Esports team, they've moved up to 5th in just one competitive entry as a team. That was back in Imola. They've moved up to 5th, up and ahead of the Holkianos Motorsports team. Up to 4th, I should say. No, it is definitely 5th. They're behind Exclusive. Yes, so they're 5th place. So these two are really moving like a little bit of a unit here. Bajor, safe to say, is looking to be a rookie sensation in his own right. I think if he can continue on form like this, there's nothing to say he can't compete for the Rookies Championship by the end of the season. We've still plenty of rounds left to follow, including plenty of those double stint rounds, and what that means is double points. Looking inside of that top 10, it's a bit of a quiet affair now. These are really those who have survived Monza more so than those who have fought for that position. You can definitely make the argument for some, like Cas van Veltzen, where he had to get his elbows out very early in the race to get up and ahead of Tyler Vermaak. For LeBay, he's had a very smart race so far. He's been able to keep solid consistency. He's not cracked under the pressure, and that's been rewarding him, basically, in what sense he's not had to fight too hard, and that's fantastic when it comes to preserving the tyres. We know the V12 Vantage absolutely munches those Pirellis down. That's one of the major fears LeBay has going into an endurance race with the 119. Is the fact that his Pirellis will not do the extra mile that the cars surrounding him on that podium are more than capable of doing. So for LeBay, he likes to take a little bit of that tortoise and the hare approach. Not to say that he's being slow, but more so that he's taking his time. He's not overexerting the car, and that's been what's rewarding him so far. He actually takes the lead here in Monza as coming into the pits goes the 420 of Cas van Veltzen. So we'll see by how long this continues to last for LeBay. We know that he is an absolute wizard with setups in that 119. Could he have cracked the code for saving those tyres for as long as possible? Unorthodox strategies have been already one of the deciding factors in LeBay's withstanding success over the course of Season 4. We saw it back in Valencia, and we could potentially see it today. Such is the case for the 119. Christian LeBay then leads here in Monza. The Season 1 champion has surfed the madness around him. He's played his cards very close to his chest here. He's not too worried about what's going on in the world around him. He's totally lasered in between himself and the white lines dividing him from absolute oblivion. The Exeter Lesmo too will stay on board here. The tremendous sound of that V12 engine. It is a guttural sound in that engine, truly is. It's such a pity then that the V12 is a dying breed in motorsports. Aston Martin really one of the only brands left to keep it alive. And that's been more relevant in the modern day with the Valkyrie project, of which took a podium in this season's IMSA Sports Car Championship at the Petit Le Mans over in Road Atlanta. This was, of course, what was the prelude to Aston Martin's successes today with the V12 engine, the V12 Vantage. Nowadays, the Vantage runs off of a Mercedes M177 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine, but part of me always longs for Aston Martin's past when they were running the naturally aspirated 12-cylinder. Nonetheless, he leads the race. Looking around the field then, Bajor up to second, Cheeseman into third with Angel fourth, Martel in fifth, and Poulin in sixth. Cas van Veltzen after that early pit stop finds himself right now in seventh place with the fastest lap. Right behind him is the 315 of Alan Alexander. Melvin Milliston not too far away at this time. Anthony Cotti in 9th place and rounding out that top 10 at this time. Matthias Gonalons in the 198 McLaren. George Todd in 11th place with Stefan Nikolai in 12th. James Mason in 13th with Kyle Jenkins in 14th place. In 15th, we can see there is Alan Alexander trying to unlap himself from Cas van Veltzen up the road from him. Behind him is Kevin Quain in 16th place with JM Keto in 17th. Ben Hart in 18th. Not too far away at all. This is one of the closer fights on track at this time as we head into the final 3/4 of an hour, sort of towards that halfway mark of the race so far. Sergio Belda chasing Ben Hart. Let's actually quickly stay on board here with the twos. The Mustang has got him dead to rights in the straightaways here in Monza. We know Ford is now the joint fastest manufacturer with Aston Martin at 175 miles an hour. Down towards Rettifilo. Belda forced to the outside against Hart. Nexus GT versus Holkianos as they make their way out and around Rettifilo. Solid defense there by the number 40 of Ben Hart. Fantastic defense of 18th place. Looking for where the other nearest fights are concerned, it's slim pickings up against this fantastic fight so far between the 74 and the 40. Let's see if we can get some onboards out of the two as we go heading down towards De La Roja. We'll just hold on to the external cameras for just a moment. Around the outside looks to go the number 74 and the number 40. Nearly a spot of contact between them, but it's so fine and so close. Getting a look in here with these two. We do not want to be left out of this one. Ben Hart defending from Sergio Belda. Let's see if we can get on board with Belda at this time. One of the more frustrating aspects of ACC is the fact that we can't actually sort the entry list more appropriately. So we do have to kind of just scroll through and pray that we hit the right driver. And here we are. Crashed right up to the back end of that BMW. Now on board after a little bit of an awkward interlude here with the 74 of Sergio Belda. With Holkianos Motorsports, the Spaniard on absolute peak form here in his attack against the number 40. These two seemingly a very close match to one another. Belda in his second season of competition here on the Sunday League goes up against the rookie in the number 40 BMW for Nexus GT. Ben Hart doing a great job of defense today. This is where it all comes tumbling down for that 40. He just cannot match what Ford brings to the table in a straight line. BMW, though they are quick, it's no dice up against what Ford has right now. 175 miles an hour top end expected from Belda. The BMW only capable at the best of times we've seen of 174. That single mile an hour can make a world's difference, and clearly it was a little too fast for Sergio Belda, forced onto the emergency runoff and loses position out to Ben Hart. So perhaps speaking a little too soon between these two. Trouble for Belda. Drops back behind. Looking around the field to see where our nearest fights are concerned. We've got a lot of drivers on different lengths of the race right now. George Todd is going to try and navigate the fight we've just been watching with of the 74 and the 40. Hart and Belda on their way through the Curva de Lesmos at turn 6 and 7. We're on with the number 12 here, George Todd, who took a very early leap to the pit lane, and that was definitely quite strategically governed by Todd. We've seen that, like a few drivers on this grid, he really likes to push the envelope out with more unorthodox strategies. He likes to keep his adversaries guessing, and Todd, very clearly in command of things right now, is in 10th place on his continued charge back up to what could be a podium fight. He plays for the long game, and that's really something that divides drivers in the endurance rounds of this championship. You've seen getting up the inside there on the 74 of Sergio Belda, who drops back massively now from Ben Hart. So wedging his way in the middle, the number 12 brings a swift end to the fight of 18th place. Carving his way through traffic like a hot knife through butter, George Todd is having a real riot here in Monza. He's made one position already over Sergio Belda. You can see he's making a light breeze of it here in the side draft of Ben Hart's BMW down the opening straight. He knows that Hart isn't going to try and fight him too severely down towards Rettifilo. It could be earlier on the brakes for the BMW, and there you do see it. He's going to hold around the outside, and up through the crowd goes the number 12. So beyond the halfway mark of this race, this is where things look like right now. LeBay, after his long-winded lead of this race, is into the pit lane We'll see where he stacks up now against Cas van Velzen and Melvin Milliston. Right now, he's into the pits. William Bajor follows him in, trying to follow on his strategy. This could be quite ambitious to see how these two emerge. We see now that Ben Cheeseman stays out long and goes into the race lead. So a new race leader for the time being. We'll see how long it lasts under strategy. Ben Cheeseman leads for 5-Star Esports here in Monza. Sam Angel will stay out as well, moving up to 2nd place and into the lead of the rookies. We did just see, was that a disconnect there for one of the drivers? Something is awry. I'm trying to figure out precisely what it was. Into the pits comes Daniel Poulon and Carl Martel. So we've got a swarm of drivers into the pits, staying out long though, Cheeseman and Angel. Gonalons looks to be potentially staying out long. We'll see what the call is for the 198. He's out through Ascari. We see here who the disconnect could have been for. We do have high ping warnings for the number 6. It is not Taylor Wolford. I have to try and think exactly who that was, but I'm pretty certain, I'm not going crazy, that we did have that problem in regards to the disconnect. I still am not entirely clear as to who that was, if there was one at all. I think I might just be going a little bit mental. Cas van Velzen, though, under strategy, has overtaken Christian Lebay. He's up into 3rd in this race, not far from retaking the race lead over Cheeseman and Angel. Lebay, though, remains in 2nd place, Bajor in 3rd, though, so it seems. And right now, with Milliston still a distance away. Actually, no, that's a total mistake there. Now you see it readjust. Milliston up to what is provisional 3rd. The game not giving us much opportunity to update things there. Seemingly the dog has found something rather interesting. Back in just a moment. Apologies for the interruption. Now back on board with the state of affairs. Sam Angel into the pit lane. That puts Cas van Velzen up to 2nd. Christian Lebay moves up to 3rd. The only puzzle piece seemingly yet to have fallen into place is that of Ben Cheeseman. And also, speaking as well, of Matthias Gonalons. These two running the longest of strategies now in today's race. With Angel emerging from the pit lane, he drops further down the order. You can see there, that's Stefan Nikolai moving up past and following in his trails, unlapping himself from the 719. Appears to be the number 91 BMW. That's Ivan Sanchez in 19th place. So 40 minutes left to go. A drive-through penalty is hit for Melvin Milliston. So that's immediate drama there. The first of our drive-throughs dished out to the defending world champion. And what could have been win number 12 today is looking to be anything but. In his charge from the podium, set to be, has now come undone. The number 1 with a drive-through penalty to serve for track limits infractions. He's tucked up behind there. One of the, I believe that's one of the Malois Racing Mustangs we're looking at the moment. If memory serves correctly, that is not the 999, so it must be the 607 of Kevin Quain, who rolls on by, seemingly there to let the number 1 through, potentially earlier on the brakes. Actually, no, holds the inside. So knowing that McLaren is eventually going to come rolling on through there, you can see where it happens. Switch back through turn 11. Could it be immediately into the pits to mitigate the damage? No, Milliston's going to try and stay out and run this to the very bitter end. 2 more laps for the number 1 to serve, before them to serve that drive-through penalty. theories already surmising that Ben Cheeseman is going for an incredibly long strategy in his efforts to try and outrun Van Velzen and outlive that Mercedes and the Aston chasing him from the podium. It is an extraordinarily risky move here, but Cheeseman seemingly committed to that long run. He's now up to the lead of this race. So looking at where things stand then, with about 39 minutes left to go, Cheeseman in the lead, Van Velzen second, Lebay third, Milliston fourth with a drive-through penalty, Bajor in fifth, Gonalons in sixth. Very close behind there is George Todd in seventh, Stefan Nicolai in eighth place with Sam Angel ninth, and Carl Martel rounds out the top 10. Dan Poulon in 11th place with Anthony Coty in 12th, Alan Alexander in 13th, Carl Jenkins 14th, Kevin Quain in 15th, JM Quito 16th, Sergio Belda 17th, Ben Hart in 18th, Ivan Sanchez 19th, and Taylor Wolford in 20th place. Alex Albert right behind him in this fight for 20th with Malois Racing's Lexus number 36 down towards Retafilo is 21st place, 22nd for Josh Wellbelove, and 23rd for Shahan Karim. Just quickly see here, George Todd charging up to the back end of Matthias Gonalons, looking potentially to try and get to abreast down towards Ascari. He's really trying to put himself inside the head of the 198. It would be a functionally suicidal move to attempt the move down through Ascari, but there's nothing to say. He can't try it on the exit. He's got a better exit right there out of turn 10. Down towards turn 11, Curva Parabolica covering the inside the 198, but he might have just sold himself short against the Ferrari. George Todd with seemingly what looks to be a brand new set of tyres. Definitely a much more reinvigorated performance we would have come to expect here out of the number 12. These two about to be shoved up into that fight for fifth place. As in the pits right now is Melvin Milliston, so they're going to move up to the fight of fifth and sixth. As now side by side, could it be to the top five right now for George Todd on the outside of the run into the Variante Retafilo? A big hit there between the pair, somehow emerging unscathed, but taking the emergency exit goes George Todd. That was incredibly close between the pair. Let's get a look at that on the replay right now. Heading down through turn one. There, that slight knock you saw, the nose pitched in. That could have been disastrous, but George Todd narrowly escaped a spin before we got into Retafilo. Had that car stayed sideways, it would have been certain doom for the pair of them. Also seeing the pit lane during that time was Josh Wellbelove, who I believe, looking at it here in the 54, could indeed be out of this race. We're going to double check that because I do want to make sure of these things. But yeah, so we're seeing here that McLaren number 54, Josh Wellbelove, is now out of this race. 36 minutes left to go, lap 29. Ben Cheeseman's in to the pit lane, so Cas Van Velzen, making his way around turn 11, is short to return to the race lead after Parabolica. Here comes Cas Van Velzen down to the checkered line, now leads once again here with 36 minutes left to go. On to lap 30, Van Velzen leads once more in Monza. Clearly an announcement so great, even the dogs are liking that one. More on that in a moment's time, though. Van Velzen leads. Just one moment. We catch on board here with the fight between Melvin Milliston and Stefan Nicolai on the exit of Ascari. Big trouble for the number one there. Very nearly a spin out and could have been yet another victim of Ascari's curse. Now on the exit of turn 10, down towards turn 11 we go. Gonalons into the pit, so that's the last of our expected pit lane runners, and that's going to give rise to what is short to be a fight of sixth place coming up between Nicolai and Milliston. Looking to try and catch on board. We see another fight going on here, Albert v Wolford. Albert now up to 19th place. Wolford in 20th, but into the wall goes the 36, but narrowly escapes a big wipeout. Was happy to escape that with just a few bumps and scrapes through Ascari. Minor contact with the wall for the 36 of Albert. He's down to 20th from 19th place, so negligible damage at that time. Van Velzen leads here in Monza. And what is quickly becoming quite a confusing state of affair, Ben Cheeseman, after his pit stop, is on the podium by 0.7 of a second to William Bajor. As I say that, though, you can see it has since changed, and I appear to be looking at it the same as you are. The 333 now up the road from Cheeseman. Well, there is still that silver lining to the dark cloud. They may not be on the podium, but what a result 5-Star has had since a disastrous drive yesterday in Bathurst for the team. This is really the kind of remedy they needed. They've got 2 cars inside of that top 10 right now. Stefan Nicolai and Ben Cheeseman looking to deliver good results here to keep themselves within that fight up against the likes of the Velocity Racing team. They're joint on points in the team's championship with Millister behind the pair of them. This is fantastic news for 5-Star Esports. Bajor, though, up to 3rd. Are we about to see another podium from the rookie sensation? Bajor has been a show-stopping act since his entry last round in Imola. Surely he cannot go back-to-back on performances like this. This is unimaginable for the 333. VEC Esports' ace in the hole, William Bajor, is really going above and beyond the call of duty in that Mustang. We'll see exactly where he lands in 33 minutes' time. So after the most recent strategy calls, we see also into the pit lane at the moment the 607 of Kevin Quain. And we can't see it from this distance, but it looks like possible damage on the Mustang. Nonetheless, the 607 is in for now and seemingly exiting the pit lanes. As now entering the pit lanes comes Matthias Gonalons. Now, we saw him in earlier, but it didn't count towards a valid pit stop. So he's back in once again with seemingly still damage on the nose of that 198 McLaren. So as we see right now, this is the state of affairs as we approach the 30-minute mark of racing left to conclude. Cas van Veltzen leads in Monza, Christian Lebay in 2nd, William Bajor in 3rd with Ben Cheeseman in 4th place. George Todd rounds out the top 5 ahead of Stefan Nicolai in 6th, Melvin Milliston in 7th after that drive-through penalty. Sam Angel in 8th place with Carl Martel in 9th. Rounding out the top 10, Dan Poulon with the number 13 Ferrari from Malois Racing. Matthias Gonalons in the pit lane set to drop more positions than just 11th as we see an incredibly close fight between Anthony Cote and Alan Alexander down towards the Variante Rettifilo. This is the fight of 11th place between the two. Up the inside goes Alexander. Can he hold the line through Rettifilo? Yes, he can. What a move. Up to 11th then for the 315 of Alan Alexander for Euro Titans Endurance. Their first impressions here as a team in the Sunday League, looking to in the future, by the looks of things, compete in full force for the team's championship, as we are starting to see more and more interest taken by some of the big league names in the world of console sim racing. We've seen already a few drivers pitch in here and there from MSA Racing. Now we see a more heavy presence we've seen actually from Velocity and Exclusive, courtesy of their aces in the hole, Tyler Vermack and Melvin Milliston. And now we see the entry of Euro Titans. Now, we've seen Euro Titans drivers compete in the Sunday League before, back before the team's championship was a thing. Ian Skeen was one such example back in Season 2, competed to a win in Bathurst. It was part of the first ever Manufacturer 1-2 for any one manufacturer that went to Aston Martin. Now we see the team that he has most prominently competed with in recent memory, the Euro Titans lineup, being represented by that of Alan Alexander. Now, I believe we have seen Alan Alexander in a few different leagues, not just NLRL. But we have definitely seen plenty of his exploits over the course of NLRL's range of operations. They are a very present sight there. Where Euro Titans goes, Alexander is not far away. Let's just see up the road at this time. So where the battle dissipates now, Cote overtaken by Alexander up to 11th. Melvin Milliston is on the charge towards Stefan Nicolai. Not far behind him is Sam Angel. So let's see if we can catch on board with these three. Stefan Nicolai right now 1.2 seconds up the road from Melvin Milliston. On board here with one of the newest signings to 5-Star Esports in the number 5 McLaren. A little bit of damage on the right-hand side, though. You can see there on the McLaren something is not 100% there with 30 minutes left to go in Monza. Just to take a note as well, further around the field we see very close, but right now not for an actual fight, the 13 and the 91. Also very close, but not for a fight, Cheeseman and Gonalons. Back on for what could be a fight here. We're on board with Stefan Nicolai as Melvin Milliston looms by just around a second. In that last lap there was faster by about 0.07 of a second. Slowly chipping away on time here to Nicolai's number 5. With Angel in pursuit as well by 1.2 seconds to the number 1. Just like Tyler Vermack, his former championship rival, Melvin Milliston has not had a breezy drive today. He's had that drive-through penalty to deal with. He's had a few stability scares out through Ascari. This has been a lot less of a clean performance, and I really think that that comes to be the case no matter what championship you compete for when you come to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. It is a track that governs the same kind of chaotic energy that we saw yesterday at another track, the Mount Panorama circuit over in New South Wales, Australia. Those two tracks just synonymous with trouble. No matter the championship, no matter the car, no matter the conditions. We've seen Monza now in rain, shine, and now at night time. We'll be able to see it for a hell of a long time more later on in the Console Endurance Series season when we go there in the second half of the championship. Right now, though, here in round 4, it has been a fantastic round rife with drama. The gap slowly closing in, though. Milliston on the advance. So too is Sam Angel. We are seeing the slow compression between 6th, 7th, and 8th in this concertina effect between the two McLarens and the Lexus. So we see another stability scare for the number 1. So if we try and catch on board here with Melvin Milliston, he drops away massively in the fight against Stefan Nicolai. Now has to start prioritizing whether or not he chooses to defend from Sam Angel. Knowing that his proverbial goose is a bit cooked out here when it comes to straight line speed, McLaren are slower pound for pound than Lexus. He does find himself now increasingly vulnerable as only 4 tenths behind him is Sam Angel in the 719, leading in that rookies division. Leading the rookies championship, I should say. In today's rookie division, it's William Bajor leading that charge. Heading down towards Rettifilo, you can see the 719 trying to take a chunk here out of the number 1. Down through Rettifilo we go, holding the inside on both sets of corners, turns 1 and 2. Great defense so far by Melvin Milliston, but does he think here that his time is being cut relatively short? 27 minutes left to go, just under 28 as a matter of fact. He knows in the straights he cannot escape the omnipresent draw of that 719. Down towards De La Rogia, you can see that Sam Angel is no slouch when it comes to the fight here. It may be a straight line speed strength car, but it is not a slouch in the corners. We have already seen time in and time again how strong that RCF has been. 0.4 of a second currently the margin. We're still on board with Melvin Milliston, Season 3 champion, up against the ropes here in what has been a proper scrap with the elements to keep that car on the track here in Monza. You can see where this area of contention comes down as we're still watching what is this defensive fight for 7th now. Following here with Milliston, it's this kink here in Ascari and that tiny stab over the gravel that just causes so much trouble for him. You can see hanging over the rear spoiler here is Sam Angel, slowly reeling him in. He knows he's on the line now. He's being slowly reeled in by that Lexus in the straightaways. As I say that, big upset on the entry of Parabolica for Sam Angel. Now out by a second. We'll see him draw that in by a few tenths in the straight. Here as we get on to the start of lap 34. In terms of lap times, he was 4 tenths faster on the last lap alone. Heading down towards turns 1 and 2. Looking on a wider scale here to see how the rest of the field is concerned. It's Van Veltzen from Labay, from Bajor, Cheeseman in 4th, Todd 5th. So that's still yet to have changed. We see at the moment being chased, so it seems here, is George Todd over Ben Cheeseman. So we are now watching a fight inside of that top 5. Up the inside goes the number 12. Ben Cheeseman desperately trying to fend off position here. We're watching the fight now. George Todd versus Ben Cheeseman for 4th place. The Ferrari versus the McLaren. Do want to try and get a look on board with George Todd from the onboard view, but he goes up the inside. Dare I say it, is he going to attempt to leap up the inside? Yes, he is, through Ascari, but he's onto the grass and makes contact with Cheeseman. It's disaster at Ascari, very nearly collected there, trying to worm his way through. Was looking at it there, that was the number 332, Shahan Karim, just surfing his way through the madness, but a huge collision between George Todd and Ben Cheeseman down at Ascari. The pair of them surely out of the top 5, potentially even out of the top 10, as you see there. That's Sam Angel. So yes, that is a pretty obvious sign of things to come here as they now drop towards the back of the top 10. That has been disaster between the pair. George Todd collides with Ben Cheeseman. Now he's up and ahead of the number 114, and he will be seeing red for the rest of that race. Ben Cheeseman, after the Herculean effort he had to put himself in that top 5, it's all come asunder. And where one 5-star esports car has been vanquished, another continues to rise. Now taking the charge up to 4th place, Stefan Nicolai in 4th place. Melvin Milliston 1.8 seconds away. You can see there one of the Holciano's Ferraris running into a spot of bother. I believe that to be, yes, JM Quito in the number 26 that ran into trouble down through the Variante Rettifilo. He's attempting to unlap himself from 15th place. Milliston up the road from Sam Angel. George Todd in pursuit behind him. Ben Cheeseman, they're down to 7th and 8th. So we've just seen there, was that? Oh, it was just a little bit of a disconnect warning for the 114. That was a bit of a scare on our side. You can see his lights now seemingly been turned off. That's a graphical error our side. He hasn't actually turned his lights off in game with any hopes. I mean, it's pretty likely that he could have. Heading down towards the Curva de Lesmo, you can see JM Quito holding the inside, allowing them to run around him in towards turn 6. Jumps back in front, though, of the 114. Ben Cheeseman is not going to be particularly happy with the way things have been going at the moment. He's at the inside on the 26 down through turn 7. Now on the exit, he's lost a lot of time because of the unfortunate placement of that Holciano's Ferrari. Sam Angel in pursuit of Melvin Milliston. Melvin Milliston in pursuit of Stefan Nicolai. It is war in the top 5, and we're on board with Melvin Milliston now in the pursuit of 4th place. Three-pronged defensive here. McLaren versus Lexus once again. Nicolai leads the charge. Milliston behind him. Angel not too far away at all. 2 rookies versus the defending champion here for 4th place. Out through turn 11 we go. On to lap 36. It's got him in the slipstream, so it's nice and comfortable for this time round for Melvin Milliston. The question there remains, is he going to be looking this early for the inside? He actually is held off there by the number 5, holds the inside down towards turn 1. He's going to have to try and run around the outside. This could get disastrous. Off through the emergency exit goes both of them. Neither of them were ever planning to make that corner. A 332 gets a drive-through penalty for track limits. Shahan Karim dealt with a drive-through after taking the emergency exit. Heading through the Curva Grande, Melvin Milliston now up the road from Stefan Nicolai, despite both of them taking the emergency exit. Nicolai will not be happy with that one. Nearly runs over his brakes in a Della Rosia. Following behind Shahan Karim, you can see there's Sam Angel being held up in the 719, but Melvin Milliston up to 4th on a bit of a controversial turn of things. Had to take the runoff all the way through the Variante Rettifilo. Shahan Karim makes contact with the 719 in the background there. Taken out is Sam Angel. Look at that on the replays here. The 719 trying to get around the 332 into the Curva de Lesmo. It has all come asunder far out through, I should say, turn 6. We were watching here with Melvin Milliston. There, you can see in the background a little bit of an upset and just caught across the nose, dragged both of them into the Tech Pros on the right-hand side. The 719 caught up in a collision, attempting to lap the 332 of Shahan Karim. That's disaster for Lexus. It puts George Todd, though, up to 6th place. Not that he'll be arguing with the way things have been going so far. That slow procession back to a potential top 5 is very, very tantalizing for him at this time. 0.4 of a second between Nicolai and Milliston. These two reunited in their conquest of position so far. The exit of Parabolica, 21 minutes left to go. This has been a very controversial race here in the Sunday League. I'm sure this will be talked about for some time, especially by us here over the course of the rest of the season. This has been definitely for quite a few drivers a race to forget. It has been proper warfare for the defending champion, Melvin Milliston, who has seen all around him chaos erupt on track. Now he finds himself with a very irritated Stefan Nicolai right up his back end. Catch on with them a little later on just to take a look around the field. We see Matthias Gonalons potentially under attack in a moment's time here. Approaching from behind is Kyle Jenkins in the 1135 Star Esports McLaren. This could be for 13th place coming up through the Curva de Lesmo. Out through turn 6, you can see 2 McLarens head-to-head potentially in a moment's time. Around the field, we see Ben Cheeseman look to work his way around JM Quito. Up the road from him is George Todd. Now the Curva de Saraglio. We want to see how this one unfolds, but you can see actually having dropped some time, Kyle Jenkins in a spot of bother. Nothing severe, just having lost a little bit of time. Couldn't make the move where he wanted. Right now, have to settle where he is. Karl Martel potentially in pursuit here of Sam Angel after his incident with Shahan Karim. We also see trouble for the 36 down at the Variante Retafilo. We do have yellow flags out for the 36. It's Alex Albert potentially in trouble with a drive-through penalty. So he had to take the runoff out through turn 1 and 2. And like Shahan Karim, he's now got a drive-through penalty. From behind him, Cas van Veltzen beckons him to move over before De La Rosa, and he obliges there. Alex Albert moving over from 20th place. 19.5 minutes left to go. Let's see how things unfold on track right now. Cas van Veltzen continues to lead here in Monza with Christian Lebay in second place. William Bajor in third with Melvin Milliston now up to fourth place. Stefan Nicolai rounds out the top 5 for 5-Star Esports. George Todd really not too far behind now. That number 12 in a hot pursuit of 5th place. The chances for a top 5 rest in his hands with 20 minutes left to go. He's in 6th for the time being. Ben Cheeseman 7th with Sam Angel in 8th. Potentially to be under attack in a moment's time by the approaching Malois Racing Mustang of Karl Martel down in the rookies division here in this championship. The 999 in pursuit now of the 719. Let's see how this one unfolds. We'll keep calling through the list here. Daniel Poulon in 10th place. In 11th place, Alan Alexander with Euro Titans. Anthony Cotti in 12th place. We see, though, up the inside goes Karl Martel. Do either of them have the chances of surviving this corner? Just about there, and spinning around goes Sam Angel. Spins at Retafilo. Oh, no, it has gone horrifically wrong. You see him rejoin the track there, very nearly into the iron sights of the Ferrari right behind him. That appears to be Daniel Poulon at this time, but spinning around past turn 1. That is a rare sight indeed, with just how strong the traction control has been over the course of this race. We see side by side, Angel v Poulon. One Malois car's already got the better of him. Do 2 of them get the better of him down towards De La Rosa, now running way later on the brakes around the outside. Solid defense by Sam Angel, scorned by what went on down at Retafilo. He's not going to make the same mistake at De La Rosa. But looking down the Lesmos, Poulon's not going to be saying no to the opportunity to be up in 9th. Sam Angel really up against it in this race right now. The rookie championship leader currently finds himself in 5th in division and 10th overall, potentially. Oh, sorry, 9th overall. Potentially the drop back to 10th. I had to double take that. So well, hang on just a second. No, this is currently that fight for 9th place. Angel v Poulon, the 13 and the 719. Also, just to quickly comment as well, there is another close fight going on up the road from these two, from the battle of 9th place, is a 3-car fight as it stands for 4th. Milliston v Nicolai versus Todd. All of them now within a second of one another. Quickly catching back on board here, because this is where great difficulty is going to emerge for Dan Poulon. Just to note as well, Christian Lebay only 5.3 seconds off the lead. That gap has slowly been chipped away over the course of the last, looking at it here now, 74 odd minutes in today's race. An hour and 14 minutes. The chances, dare I say it, are there for Lebay. Never say never on that front, but Van Veltzen has been incredibly commanding of today's race. It would be very, very difficult at this time to go taking that off of the 420. Watching still with Dan Poulon versus Sam Angel. Down in 9th place in this fight right now, Lexus versus Ferrari. We see in the meantime as well, George Todd still in pursuit of Stefan Nicolai. He drops further behind Melvin Milliston, so it's quickly becoming a 2-car fight down in 5th, more so than a 3-car fight up in 4th. You can see the divide happening in real time. These two down towards Parabolica. We know that pound for pound, the Ferrari just has a little bit more give in the hands of the number 12 right now, but let's not completely rule out McLaren. The data would suggest only a difference of about, in the Imperial system, about 2 miles an hour. When it comes to the metric system, we're talking in a more of a range of about 3 kilometers an hour. So still very, very small changes, but the slipstream is going to be doing Todd plenty of favors down towards turn 1. This is all in that fight for 5th place. Stefan Nicolai up against potentially what is the ropes here, down towards turns 1 and 2. The number 12 not looking for the inside. He's just going to glue himself very, very close by to the number 5. Looking further around the field, the fight of Angel v Poulon makes its way now out through the curve of Parabolica. The 332, I should say, is in the pit lane right now. Shahan Karim with that drive-through penalty in an emergency stop. So that could be the end of the road for VEC Esports' Ferrari. For their Mustang, though, William Bajoy is on the podium and continues to stay there. We're now looking here with George Todd as we see the gaps drop to under a tenth of a second between himself and Stefan Nicolai. All in that fight for 5th place. Still incredibly close stuff between the pair. In terms of Poulon v Angel, I think this one is starting to wrap itself up if we can get the words out in time. So let's get on board with that fight going on between Stefan Nicolai and George Todd. Out through the curve de Saraglio, you can see just 1.2 seconds up the road is Melvin Milliston in 4th place. All 3 of those drivers safely through Ascari. That's been a real area of contention for all 3 of these drivers over the course of today's race. Stefan Nicolai holding close to 5th place right now, 4 tenths behind him. George Todd potentially to close in as we head down the opening straight. We'll stay on board here with Stefan Nicolai to see what the going rates are in that fight for 5th place. And see, just hanging in the slipstream, that Ferrari's getting closer and closer and closer and closer. He was 300ths faster in the last lap, looking towards centre mass of the road, potentially to sneak his way to the inside. He's stuck back in behind in the wake of that McLaren. George Todd loses a little bit of steam on the exit of turn 2. Still watching here with the Ferrari versus the McLaren. Stefan Nicolai doing absolutely everything he can here to stave off the attack by George Todd. We go heading down into Lesmo 1 and 2. The braking boards there on the left-hand side have been scattered across the track. Now out through Lesmo 2, down the curve de Saraglio. The gap only continues to open up between the 2 McLarens of Milliston and Nicolai. He is still stuck in for that defensive fight of 5th place. Is only gaining more and more time as George Todd. It's going to be a case of when and not if that Ferrari can get side by side with the McLaren number 5. Now on the exit of Ascari. Heading down towards Curva Parabolica. This could get incredibly close between the pair. They come round turn 11. Running out wide. There goes Stefan Nicolai. So it's side by side and up and ahead goes George Todd. Up into 5th place he goes. So George Todd into 5th place. What can Stefan Nicolai do over the course of lap 42 with 11 minutes left to go? Down through the Variante Rettifilo, the Ferrari takes charge of that fight for the top 5. Running out wide then through Parabolica ultimately was what undid the performance there for Stefan Nicolai. Lost a lot of momentum up against the Ferrari. George Todd slingshot past the McLaren before we hit Rettifilo. There was very little chance for fight back once that move was solidified. But cutting away from these 2 to see what it's looking like up in front of them. You can see they are not too far from one another, but looking up the road is the next target on the itinerary for George Todd. It's going to be that of Melvin Milliston. Currently 4th place on a potential race to forget, where it has been otherwise stellar results for the number 1 over the course of this season. He's took 3 race wins back-to-back in both of the sprint race, double sprint races, I should say, in Valencia, and then making it a hat-trick last weekend in Imola to bring him 11 wins on the chart. He'll be possibly, by the looks of things here, denied the opportunity for win number 12. He'll be looking like a very solid win coming up very soon for Cas van Velzen if he can hold his current position. The 420 leads the charge, but something I want to draw to your attention as we look around the field here, namely for the number 420 leading today's race, that gap between himself and Christian Lebay is starting to decline. It was 5 seconds not long ago. It is now 4.8. Slowly hemorrhaging time is that leading Mercedes over the Aston Martin. Watching here with Cas van Velzen, he has really took the initiative over the course of this race. It was elbows out from the start and then smooth and steady for the rest of the race. But could that be coming back to bite him here? Because on strategy, I think he may have been pitched by that Aston Martin. 4.5 seconds and closing. Christian Lebay in the next 10 minutes could be in fighting distance for a race win. That would be Lebay's first ever Sunday League win if he can take it here. Looking at the overall race winners throughout the last 4 seasons of competition here in the NLRL Sunday League, you'll see that Melvin Milliston, of course, with 11 race wins. Wesley Kuiper, Jason Bush and Tyler Vermaak with 5. Cas van Velzen looking at a potential third to put himself even further up the charts. Cas van Velzen's last win came out of the second of 2 races on a post-race ruling decision at Silverstone, Season 3, Round 10. Drive-through penalty given to Kevin Quain, also now having to serve that, also still yet to have served theirs, and what seems to be a DNF now for the 332. Shahan Karim with VEC Esports. Kevin Quain, the most recent victim then of the drive-through penalties. This could be win number 3 for Cas van Velzen coming up in the next 8 minutes, or could it be, by the looks of the way that gap is proceeding, win number 1 for Christian Lebay? This could be one of the most exciting ends to a race we may have ever seen or will see here in the Sunday League, a battle of 8 and 12 cylinders. Only time will tell who the race victor may truly be. Looking further down the line after his recent overtake by George Todd, Stefan Nicolai now stranded in 6th place by 4 seconds. He's a mile away now by the seeming of it from that number 12, now setting his sights upon Melvin Milliston. Gap between those two at this time, 3 seconds, and looking to close. Looking around the field, there is a very close skirmish of cars here. This is the number 13 and the 719. Sam Angel and Dan Poulon on their way down towards turn 11. We're going to try and catch on board with the attacking of 2 here with Sam Angel in the rookies division. That Lexus still in pursuit, looking to get up and around the number 13 Malois Racing Ferrari. This is all in that fight right now for 9th place. They head down the opening straight. Now this is exactly where he wanted Poulon to be, because he knows straight line speed is in his court to play for. So now caught up in the slipstream, he is full pedal to the metal here on his way down towards turn 1, but I think just a little too late for him. He was too far back to make an advance on the Ferrari, so has to try his chances in through the corner, as running a little bit steep through turn 1 was Dan Poulon. Sam Angel still in pursuit in that 719. They were following very closely out through Ascari when we caught on with them. Now on the exit of the Curva Grande. I suppose on the entry of the Curva Grande. Now on the exit of the Curva Grande as we head down towards Della Rosia. A lot to keep track of here in the fleeting minutes of today's race. The 607 has its drive-through penalty cleared, so Kevin Quain cleared and continuing to race. 7 minutes left to go here in Monza. We're watching the fight for 9th place. Sam Angel looking up the inside on Dan Poulon, looking once again as he forces the 13 to hesitate. Out through turn 6, very nearly contact as rejoining the track comes Dan Poulon. Sam Angel looking for the inside, sweeping around the outside. The number 13 just couldn't find enough momentum. Up to 9th goes Sam Angel. Lap 44 then. Sam Angel up to 9th. See how this proceeds. They head up towards the Variante Ascari, a real area of contention. Angel appears to have damage on that Lexus. Yes, you can see a noticeable gap between the front bumper and the bonnet, or I suppose the hood for our American audiences. As you can see, quite a sizable panel gap. So that's front end damage Sam Angel's been able to do all of that with, and he's really not wasted any time there. That was incredibly clean, clinical out of Sam Angel in the 719 Lexus. Looking around the field, here's Cas van Velzen. That gap now between himself and Christian Lebay has just dropped beneath 4 seconds. The chances for Lebay to attack in the next 6 minutes are growing by the lap here. It is a real race to the line, and it has come very, very late on for the 119 to challenge for the lead as it now drops to nearly within 3 seconds. Something is not awry here, or something is not quite right, I should say. Something is awry for the 420 of Cas van Velzen, because he has now dropped 2 seconds in 2 laps. Imminent trouble for the 420. Last lap by Lebay on 148.260. Last lap by Van Velzen on 149.655. 1.4 seconds difference between the Aston Martin and the AMG. This could be something properly unexplainable, folks. We'll eagerly wait to see how this unfolds. I don't really quite believe what I am seeing before my very eyes. We do have a drive-through for the number 26. Getting a look as to who is next on the victim list. JM Keto is beckoned to the pit lane by the stewards for track limits infractions, down in 14th place. We'll stay on board with these two. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So still on board with Cas Van Velzen. That gap is continuing to slow between LeBay and Van Velzen. 2.4 seconds with 3 minutes left to go. This could be one of the most heated fights for the race lead I think we've ever seen here in the Sunday League, as that gap has shown no signs of slowing down. Trying to get on board here with Van Velzen to see what maybe the source of the issues are. Could it be a fuel arrangement problem for the 420 Mercedes? Is he lifting and coasting? You see, he's been a lot more delicate with the throttle than he's used to being at the start of this race. So I think fuel may genuinely be a concern here, but he's not alone in that assumption. LeBay, with that V12 engine, it's the thirstiest engine on that grid. Surely the pair of them will be struggling with the same problems heading in through Ascari. Van Velzen in serious trouble, as you can see, looming around Ascari. 2.5 seconds away from him is the 119 Aston Martin of Christian LeBay. Looking further around the field, you can see that hostilities have all but ceased between Milliston, Todd and Nikolai. Todd and Nikolai much closer to one another now, 3 seconds, whereas Milliston is miles up the road. See Jenkins here potentially to fight with Coty, 2 seconds away now, as Milliston next into his iron sights. Number 12 picks up a drive-through penalty. George Todd to drop out of the top 5 there. That's going to give Stefan Nikolai the world's favour to get 5-star back into the top 5 after all things said and done. You see here for LeBay, he is catching up at a rate of knots here, folks. I cannot begin to properly explain this. This could be absolutely mega for Christian LeBay. The time is now for the 119 to fight for the lead. 1.5 minutes left to go. We are staring down the barrel of one more lap here in Monza between Van Velzen, between LeBay, Mercedes versus Aston Martin. 1.4 seconds, the gap as they exit Lesmo 2, down to the curve to Saraglio. They have one more lap to play for. One slip, and it could be a race win for Christian LeBay, or it could be a third race win for Cas Van Velzen. Down through Ascari, these two getting closer and closer at a rate of knots here. We know in a straightaway that Aston Martin is one of the fastest things going, 175 miles per hour. In the pit lane at the moment appears to be yet another vehicle on the grid right now. The 315, Alan Alexander in the pits from 19th. We watch here, entering that final lap, the Mercedes in clear view of Christian Lebay. This could be a fight for the ages. We'll see precisely how it pans out. Faster by 0.6 in the last lap, heading down towards Rettifilo. Alex Albert, his teammate there at the Malois Racing team, quickly moves over to allow for the advance of the 119 over the 420 of Cas van Velzen. It's 1.3 seconds and closing past Rettifilo. This could be absolutely unfathomable between these two. 1.3 seconds the margin. We're still on board with Lebay. Looking further around the road, we see an exchange of position there, seemingly for Stefan Nicolai and Dan Poulin dropping out of the runnings. Then the 315 of Alan Alexander, a bitter end for Euro Titans. We've seen that it has been slaughter here in Monza. We started with 29 cars. We now find ourselves with but only 18 left. Another 11-car DNF like we saw last night in Bathurst. But heading down for the last time through the Lesmos in towards the curve to Saraglio. It is so tantalizingly close here between Van Velzen and Lebay as they head down towards Ascari. It could hang in the balance between either of these two drivers. Could it be a third race win for Cas van Velzen? Could it be a first race win for Christian Lebay? In through the Variante Ascari. It is so incredibly close, but sideways for Lebay. The 119 so close to the race lead has spun, and the 333 is not far away, but I think he'll just be able to hold on to second. So for Cas van Velzen, he can breathe a sigh of relief as heading around the Curva Parabolica, awaiting the checkered flag with open arms. It's a third race win for Cas van Velzen. He wins in Monza on a dramatic final lap in his fight with Christian Lebay. The 420 reigns supreme. To the line then, Lebay equalises on his best ever season result. Second place once more, 2 seconds back to back, and he's up the road from Milliston, so he's getting close. William Bajor wins in the rookies down towards the line. Another rookie category win and another overall podium. William Bajor is simply a man who cannot be stopped in that rookies category. Milliston on his way to the line for 4th place. And it's all come to a grinding end here for the number one. He'll potentially hold on to that championship lead, but the gap is shrinking. By the time we get to Spa at round 5, he's done well to survive today through thick and thin, a top 5 for the Super Swede. Milliston to the line, 4th place here in Monza. Ben Cheeseman has really surfed the masses for this one. He has been the saving grace of 5-Star Esports. They can end the weekend on a high note, I should say. Down towards the line comes the 114 for a top 5 finish for 5-Star Esports. Carl Martel to the line in the 999. A very valiant effort indeed as he exits Parabolica. 6th place in the Malois Mustang. Down towards the line on the podium for Malois Racing in the rookies division. Sam Angel on a race to forget finds himself still looking on a high note here. 3rd place in the rookies division. He'll continue his hold of the championship in the rookies with a damaged nose cone. A valiant effort for the 719 on thoughts of what could have been still a great race. He's 7th overall, 3rd in division. There you can see the rest of the results. So the bottom line, Cas van Velzen wins in Monza. The Dutchman's 3rd ever win in the Sunday League, and one very closely met after a very controversial last lap. Drama for Lebay as a half spin through Ascari nearly put him out of the race on the final lap, but he finishes 2nd. Lebay in the 119. William Bajor in 3rd. Once again, another overall podium for the rookie sensation and another rookies division win. Melvin Milliston 4th with Ben Cheeseman in 5th. Carl Martel on the rookies podium for Malois Racing in 6th overall. 2nd in division, 3rd overall, 3rd in division and 7th overall for Sam Angel. Then Dan Poulin in 8th, Stefan Nicolai in 9th place, Matthias Gonalons rounds out the top 10, Kyle Jenkins in 11th, from Anthony Coty in 12th place, Sergio Belda 13th, JM Quito in 14th, Taylor Wolford on his first race here in the Sunday League in the top 15 in that number 6 Porsche. Kevin Quain in 16th place, Ivan Sanchez in 17th. That drive-through penalty puts George Todd on what is an ambiguous result there. Technically didn't take the checkered flag, but finishes 18th, supposedly ahead of Alex Albert. And there's the death toll from behind. Alan Alexander, 7 laps into a DNF from the line there. off from the finish by 7 laps. Still a DNF though for the 315. Shahan Karim, Ben Hart, Josh Wellbeloved, James Mason, Ranko Lagovic, Daniel Richards, Nye Roberts, Tyler Vermack, and Rakoto Manga, all DNFs in a very controversial outing here in Monza. What a race that was, and what an ending. Cas van Velzen, the Flying Dutchman, revels in a 3rd ever win in the Sunday League ahead of Christian Lebay on what could have been, had there been one more lap and one less incident, a fight for his 1st ever. That chance, make no mistake of it, is coming this season. I stand 10 toes on the assertion that Aston Martin will one day cross the checkered flag in 1st, but that Mercedes is a real tough customer, and very well done to Cas van Velzen. Also very well done to William Bajor, 3rd overall, and wins once again, back-to-back rookie division wins for the 333 Mustang of VEC Esports. Well, what a race, folks, and what a weekend it has been here on our broadcasts here in TRTN. It was a fantastic round last night in the Console Endurance Series out in Bathurst. It's been an equally fantastic night here in the Sunday League, where we're concerned with coming into the next week of broadcasting. For Saturday, we'll be on with the folks over at the exclusive Pro Series, the XL Pro Series, I should say, on for round 4. The championship will be coming to you live from Schuyler County, New York State at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. And then on Sunday, we'll be coming back to the Sunday League for round 5 at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for another 60-minute race on the 23rd of November. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.